Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spar and Brawl. I hope you're having a decent day. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Sam. I'm back with another episode of the Progressive World. So, just before we get started, please like and also subscribe. If you've been watching us for a while and you haven't subscribed, consider doing so. And also, we've launched a few social media accounts, so you can find the information and all the links down below in the description box. But I would like to highlight two of them where we're going to be more active as of now, and I think is perhaps more valuable to you, which is the first one on Substack. There we're putting our podcast in audio form. So if you want to listen to it on Substack, I've seen it's good. Even if you're just on Safari or something on your iPhone, you can lock it and you can still listen to the audio, which is good. And also Twitter channel. So also go and subscribe there. We're planning on just posting little short clips of our show there. So if you'd like to share, I remember there were one or two people who asked if we had Twitter. So now we do. And also let us know if Sam says some funny stuff or anything crazy and you think we should turn into a little Twitter clip. Let me know the minutes down in the comment section. And I'll definitely cut
I
those out
resent
into
the
little
idea.
pieces.
I resent the idea that I'm the only one who's saying crazy things. It feels
I don't know. I think you
it
say more
feels
interesting stuff.
sure. Oh wow. Crazy you said. Now it's interesting. How diplomatic.
Yeah. And then I guess the other thing that's going to change, which is we'll try that today, which is in our intro, instead of me going through like every story, blah, 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 we're just going to mention the ones that we're most excited to talk about. And of course, timestamps down below, as always. We're not going to change that. The one good thing that we do on this channel. And we'll also chit chat, and then there'll be that little intro music, and we'll get right into our first story. So, Sam, for me, actually, this one blends perfectly because both the chit chat and what I've been up to and what I'm most excited to talk about is all the same, which is
Oh,
first and foremost Whoopi Goldberg. I
oh
can't get
yeah.
enough of this story. I was just going through YouTube yesterday looking for more and more stuff. And then the Joe Rogan stuff, I'd like many others to come to his defense a bit, point out the ridiculousness of the other side of the arguments. So those are really two things that I'm super excited to talk about
Yeah, the
today, really.
Whoopi one was I mean every week I think okay, we just this is we are through the looking glass and it's all pretty like this is maximum crazy, you know. And then and then somebody says something like that on national television and you're like, oh and I don't know if like literally, I mean this is not a news thing, but Rudy Giuliani is apparently gonna appear on The Masked Singer. I don't know if you know that reality show.
No.
Apparently, it's a reality show. I heard about it because I follow Screen Junkies and stuff. And they like dress up like a animal or a character or whatever,
What the
and
heck?
then yeah, it's like a full costume, like one of those costumes that you see like fast food place
Yeah.
people in the front, and then they and then yeah, he's apparently one of those, and then they sing and people have to guess, the judges have to guess that who they are or something.
Jesus.
And like I mean Rudy Giuliani is not cancelled. He tried to have sex with an underage person on camera. Like I don't know how's this possible. But yeah, it's been a crazy week. But the Whoopi one was, yeah, that was just
Yeah,
fun. That was just
that
pure
that's the
joy.
best one. And I've also found the clip from my favorite gaff of her, which is from like 2 years ago. So I'll also be sharing that. But yeah,
Great
what
one.
else, Sam? I know you're super excited about one story for sure.
Oh man, my yeah, I feel like this show has increasingly become my way of sort of channeling my anger at people and hatred. So yeah, Johann Hari, who we read an article a couple of weeks ago from Guardian, I think 3 weeks ago on Guardian. He had an excerpt of his book published in the Guardian and all that. He's made some media appearances on some of our favorite channels, and there I found a couple of articles. I couldn't find. I haven't been able to access his latest book yet because I'm not going to pay for it. And yeah, but I found a couple of interesting articles I really want to share.
I
So it's
mean,
good.
one of the articles that you shared with me, the professor really goes down to goes to like the main point, which is like the premise of his book,
the
which is
science of the book.
yeah, which is what I wondered if there was actually, and I knew that it's not even possible really to like scientifically, back the main claim that is making. So I'm glad that one of the articles that you shared, the guy tackles that directly. So we'll get to that, and then yeah. The Hill had some interesting stories, which we'll definitely talk about animal and human testing. Glenn Greenwald had another one of these videos with like a critique, who's this
Yeah,
young boy who shows up. And then
that was interesting.
I think those are the
A
main
mysterious
stories.
man who's covered his identity so well that I think no one knows who he is. All we know is that he's called Nicholas, and his face, and the room he lives in, and everything.
But
so that's the fun.
Those are kind of our stories. Anything else you did fun or worth mentioning from this week?
So let me see. I think we're gonna talk about the one of my favorite movies growing up, Fight Club. So that's gonna be fun.
Okay, nice. No, but I meant besides the stories that we have, anything else? I have some disappointing news for you.
What?
So I finally sat down with my wife and sister, and I finally convinced them to watch Succession because some of their friends are watching. My sister-in-law and stuff, they're watching it. They love it.
And you watched it too?
I watched it too, very carefully. And I must say, we only watched like an episode and a bit, so definitely not enough. But I didn't fall in love with it the first episode. I was a bit bored, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to convince them to watch again with me. I don't know.
Wow, bored.
A bit, not too bored, but
I mean, you're tasteless, so whatever. But no, I'm joking. No, but I mean, it's just so weird that you said, because I feel like because I think Adam McKay directs even the first episode.
And that's what it says on
his style of editing. He's one of the few directors that, The Big Short is one of his best movies, I think. He makes the most boring subjects exciting through this weird editing, and I think sort of montages and all that. So I find that a bit odd, but I think, maybe give it I think 3 episodes for any TV show is my rule. So watch 3 episodes and then decide.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, I can imagine someone watching the first episode of Sopranos or something and being like, this is not the most intriguing, funnest show.
Sopranos' first season was quite a torturous. Like, it's hard to get through.
Yeah.
For somebody who came to it after it was finished, it was hard to, because you had aged quite some time.
But this week I found that Bree is also a super big Sopranos fan, because in one of those call-in episodes, she was telling her viewers what she was up to today, and she was like, and then watched 2 or 3 episodes of The Sopranos. So it sounded like she was rewatching them and stuff. Those call-in ones are good, and I sent you a little video clip which we'll talk to, where I think the guy makes a very similar point to what that you usually make, which is like, where is like the tough, crazy guy on the left who just, where like the nut job politicians / will do anything, for the cause on the left, kind of, and people. So we'll get into that. It reminded me of you. But okay.
And I've been watching, talking TV shows, I've been watching Righteous Gemstones season 2, and it's so good. It's just so good. I told you, that's another one. I think you like that more because I think it's more humorous in a way that I think you appreciate. So
I see.
That one is just a straight out comedy, but in such a good comedy. Satire, I guess. Satire.
See, and so I haven't seen or anything about that show, but it just reminded me of one last thing, and I have to go double check this. But I told you how whenever I'm like just eating or something, I usually like to have some kind of sitcom on, and I often go for How I Met Your Mother. So the other day was on Netflix, and in Europe, at least in Switzerland, I feel like they removed How I Met Your Mother. Or I tried searching it, but I haven't looked up on Google if it's the case or not. And I was just thinking, this is pure speculation, they might have not even removed it. I might be mistaken. Or in the US, it's still there. Or simply their contract came to an end and they didn't renew it. But I'm thinking in this kind of like relative cancel culture environment and stuff, where they like, How I Met Your Mother, maybe if we push it to the side and not have it on the back.
No,
Because if you talk
it
about
is
like objectifying like women or
women.
things like that,
Yeah,
talking about that show was at the pinnacle of it.
it was so weird
I
because
think.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago, and I
Yeah.
remember even when we were watching it. I mean, it was weird that they made Barney after a while a good guy. They should have just kept Barney
Mm-hmm.
as a bad guy. Then you don't feel like because he's a protagonist, like or what you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You don't have to like him then. But after a while, they have to make Barney likable too. So it just becomes really problematic. I mean, I don't like. I'm not pro censorship, but
Yeah.
I think, but it's just such, and it's not a. It's one of my least favorite shows, and I feel shame because I watched it. So it's
So
bad.
yeah, I'm just speculating here based
I
on
doubt it. I
absolutely
doubt it.
nothing, but I
This
was just,
I don't know who owns, but I don't know who produced. I think it may have been CBS. Maybe I
Mhm,
don't know. But if they're everybody is doing their own
mhm.
streaming network now, so it's probably more to do with contracting.
Yeah,
Because imagine How I Met Your Mother is still a big draw.
yeah, it would make sense. And actually on Hulu, now they have How I Met Your Father,
Is that a
starring
real
none
show?
other than Hilary Duff. She's the
Wow.
main character.
Hilary
My
Duff was a
wife was watching
singer?
like two clips. I mean, singer, actress,
Oh, I've
what
never.
was her famous show? It was Lizzie McGuire. That's what it was called, like her Disney one. And then she made a
Oh,
movie.
she
They go
was
to Rome.
Disney.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right. Yeah. I don't. I must even when I was a kid, I was a Cartoon Network kid. I was never Disney.
I see. I see. Okay. All right. So shall we get this party started?
Sure, sure. Let's go. It's gonna be fun. I hope. I don't know.
All right, Sam. So I say let's start with Joe Rogan. It has
As
continued.
always.
So what's the latest that happened this week? So since like, everybody's probably up to date, but Neil Young actually he got Spotify to remove his stuff. Well, they're very quick to delete his stuff, as we talked about this last week, I think already. And since
Yeah,
then,
yeah,
Joe
yeah.
Rogan actually hasn't had any other controversial guests. I think about it. So all the saga is
Mhm.
still around those two people that
No,
really.
no, wait. He responded to the
Oh yeah,
criticism,
yeah, yeah. No, I was
and
just
I
gonna
don't know
say, yeah. I was just gonna say there
the
weren't any new guests that showed up that kind of like even further like accelerated this discussion.
deteriorated
But
thing.
yeah,
No, but the other people followed Neil Young, including Joni Mitchell. So the geriatric sort of exodus from Spotify continued. Like I don't know like I feel bad for these people because like these are really respectable old. Like I don't know. By the way, I don't know
yeah,
anything about Neil Young's music or Joni Mitchell's music. But yeah, it's so bad that they're like, oh, we're gonna leave if you don't remove Joe Rogan. And Spotify is like, okay.
yeah.
It's a bit sad. But yeah, Rogan, I think, responded in a quite a gracious manner. Wouldn't
Man,
you say it was really nice? Like I don't, he's one of the nicest people. Like if I was like, I
that's the
would get
funny
so.
part, right? I mean, okay, I think we're just getting right into it. I didn't know how to start, but I think Brianna was one of Brianna's probably one of the best. I think I was listening to like framing the whole thing and pointing out one thing is just that whenever they, I mean, based on when you watch Joe Rogan, if you watched him for quite a bit, the people who are like criticizing him the most is just so far from like the person that he kind of is, it seems, at least when you get to know him on these videos.
I gotta say, the tone that is taken by I think the predominant kind of liberal media about Joe Rogan doesn't quite sit right with me because it does seem to be out of step with what is actually said and done on the show, even if there are aspects of it that one can critique.
That you can just tell that these criticisms come from people who hate him a lot. I mean, some people are so like, undermining and disgusted by him, like Sam Cedar, who goes on MSNBC to complain about misinformation, and then
oh my god,
and then on
the
his
level
show,
of hypocrisy.
who was
there.
the girl? He had
Nomoki
yeah,
Kunst, or I don't know how
hates
to pronounce
Joe
that.
Rogan, like just like disgusted by him. You can tell, and also the other girl, she's absolutely disgusted.
Emma Wigland, yeah,
Joe Rogan, but. I mean, just like Briahna was pointing out, it just doesn't, the criticism and everything, no matter how fair you try to be with it, it doesn't even add up to like Joe Rogan's personality, I think Bree says this a bunch of times. He's quite a normie guy, actually. It's not even that, and we've said this, his guests are often quite mainstream guests, maybe some of them here and there. So that's even, I guess, the extra ironic part. But when is the mainstream media's like, criticism or critiques even
has been ever good,
accurate at all? And yeah, so Joe Rogan's apology video, I mean, it was probably the best apology I have ever seen. And then
for something that, like, you could argue he didn't have to apologize.
Exactly.
I don't understand. Like, it was ridiculous. I just,
and he even sorry, just last thing, he just even points out something very practical that he can do, which would address the whole thing, which is like, he's like, I was surprised that he said that he does all the guest booking himself. Jeez, that must be a lot of work. Maybe get someone else. But he's like, maybe sometimes when I talk about COVID or topics like that, and my guest is perhaps a bit controversial, I should do a better job at immediately having someone, quote unquote, less uncontroversial, or someone
or from
the opposing side or whatever. So he even provided the best solution,
the best potential. I think.
And I mean, we're going to talk about Whoopi Goldberg later, but I was just thinking, like, contrasting both of them, how they've reacted, each of them, to like, a scandal that hit them, is just tells you a lot about Joe Rogan, which again points out that, that these people, the image that they have of Joe Rogan, whether you like him or not, it really seems to be totally, the furthest thing from reality. And so many people say he is literally the nicest celebrity they have ever interacted with. I think, Jimmy Dore was saying this, others were saying this, and I believe it.
Yes. I mean, look, a couple of things you mentioned. First of all, Sam Cedar, man, what a goddamn hypocrite. Like, what a Judas, really, what a Judas. Somebody who defended you when you were being canceled for your jokes. Like, Joe Rogan, literally, I'm pretty sure he defended him when he was being canceled. I think MSNBC was canceling him for jokes. And you go on TV to I think he was on Brian Stelter's show, wasn't it not? No,
it's MSNBC.
Chris Hayes.
Yeah,
Chris Hayes' show. Sorry, he's on CNN. But and trying to, and then Chris Hayes sort of, you're somebody who's a bit controversial. I come to you to, I mean, oh my God, you guys suck up to each other so much, and I mean, you're so pathetically. I mean, it sounds. I think Sherlock Holmes books. This is from Sherlock Holmes books, that the simplest explanation, no matter how idiotic sometimes or how unlikely, is probably the most likely one. So I think Sam Cedar, Nomoki Kunst, these type of people are, this is a gift for them, sort of. They're trying to get as much attention as they can. Kind of, to be honest, sometimes maybe we cover Joe Rogan because we want to get more clicks or something, or we use Joe Rogan to go towards an issue like freedom of speech or something. So I'm not saying that's always a bad thing, but they do it in such a hateful and envious manner that is, I'm sorry, but you must not have really any moral standards to be able to lie so obviously. And I mean, if you finger point others while you're lying, talking of misinformation, if there is such a thing, I think it's lying about someone else's, like literally lying about someone else, what they said, like, which was, it was so pathetic, man. And I think his apology was even like really not needed. I mean, he did apologize to causing trouble for Spotify employees or stuff. So that was very nice, I suppose. That was very nice.
And I love, like, he's like, I really love Neil Young and all this. And
hearing this out that he's
No, that
I
was fun.
love
Yeah, it
New
was
Year.
like apology slash, addressing the topic,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not just
That's
like
fair enough.
ignoring it and letting go. But yeah, the Sam Cedar one was probably the worst segment on it. And I was thinking,
I
if
just hope he
if
loses followers.
misinformation, although as Glenn Greenwald points out, misinformation is kind of like it's kind of like the terrorism term. It's in a way hard to define, and it's just being thrown around here and there just to shut people up. So I'm not even saying that they engaged on this, but did you get the part where Sam Seder and his crew, they kind of get into like these back and forth where they don't agree with each other on the number of viewers that Joe Rogan has, and
Oh
so how
yeah,
many has,
yeah.
and whether it went up with Spotify and didn't go up. So they don't agree with each other, meaning that one of them, right, is either
Just
saying
spreading misinformation.
information, or both of
At
them are.
least.
You could both be wrong. So in the same video, I mean, I'm kind of joking, and maybe it's a bit ridiculous to point this out, but it is the case. But that part, I love it when they're on Twitter and like looking for graphs and charts. It's like, no, hold on. Someone just sent me this on Twitter. Yeah, Joe Rogan has 100,000
Yeah, the
followers.
level
It
of
went up.
I mean, the level of scientific rigor they bring
Yeah.
into a research, like live research. Oh, somebody tweeted,
Yeah.
and then I'm checking his Facebook page now, and it's just I mean, this guy.
So
I mean, sometimes back in the days I kind of like the aesthetic of Sam Cedar and all that, but it's just he's such a bad faith. Like his criticisms are never coming from a
yeah.
good place, it seems, and. Yeah, it's
So
pathetic. It's
and
goddamn pathetic. Yeah.
their main criticism is this, which Ryan Grimm also makes this criticism, or his main point, but he makes it in a much less annoying way, which is this whole thing that because he has X amount of views, right? They keep on saying this 11 million people per episode. So let's just take that number. Therefore, he has a certain responsibility, right? Which is one thing that really bothers me and I don't get. Yeah, so I can come back to this.
I think this is just because you brought up the responsibility power thingy. Is a good place to start talking about the bad faith debates where they had three people on. Brie had three people on to talk about Joe Rogan and online censorship. I feel it wasn't just about Joe Rogan. So before I want to respond to the Hill also did this. Do you think that's a real thing, and that's a fair enough criticism?
No, I definitely don't think so whatsoever, because okay, so you become popular, so then what is this responsibility? At what point does it kick in? Okay, I'm saying that if you think that Joe Rogan has 11 million followers and now he has such a big responsibility because he gets 11 million views, so that to me means even if he got 1/10 of that, he would still, if it's so bad what he's saying, so then he would also have a responsibility, to, I don't know what the responsibility would be. Some of them are saying, that he shouldn't even touch the biggest, topics because of this. So that pretty much means that, he shouldn't talk about anything important because he might say something that, isn't right or is right. So this responsibility thing, because of the size of the audience, I think it's like complete bullshit. I don't get that.
I completely agree. It's complete BS. And I think people they don't read. I mean, talking of the bad faith debate, because I kind of want to frame it in with specific references to criticisms and arguments. First of all, I completely agree that there is no responsibility depending on how large your audience is or how popular you are. I've never personally, and I think it's kind of with movies that these days you can't have a protagonist. It has to be a hero. Like you can't have your protagonist do bad things. Same with now, you can't have popular people do, like I never look up to popular people for my life choices, or like in my daily health, I look up to doctors. In laws, like if I have a legal problem, I look up to lawyers. I mean, this thing that a talk show host has a responsibility. What is his legal responsibility? It reminded me first 45 minutes of the debates that Brie had, I felt tortured, man. Because first of all, the debate was supposed to be about Joe Rogan, and the first 45 minutes, I feel like mainly the two of the speakers, did not really talk about Joe Rogan or this situation at all. They were just talking about generally about how social media works, you know. So that was frustrating. So it had nothing to do with the case study,
Yeah.
if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. They,
And to be fair to
yeah.
them, though, they weren't necessarily like pro censorship
No,
or
no,
like,
not
yeah.
no,
But you're right.
no,
And
no.
Brie herself a few times tried to say, you know, she was like, yeah, but let's really get into Joe Rogan. You know, is he really spreading misinformation? Let's not just talk about social media. So I think the observation that you got, Brie also got the same one, the sentiment.
Yeah, I feel like after 40 minutes she managed to, it was an emotional roller coaster of interview for me, but after 45 minutes she really brought it back in a grounded way. And again, yeah, I think some of the things they were talking about, I am generally very suspicious of any public or a state structure that tries to control or modify or improve a speech. It's just, I feel like it's too tricky of a thing. So yeah, but they weren't talking about the case study. They did betray a little bit of, I think, child. I mean, they literally quoted Spider-Man. One of them literally quotes
True,
Spider-Man.
they were on
as,
the responsibility.
with great power comes great responsibility. Something that they, I mean, I'm sorry, but what are you, 15? Like what the most challenging book you have read was a Spider-Man comic book. But I don't like, what do you mean morally? Okay, maybe you're right, but morality has nothing to do with real life, or you know, we are talking of serious things, and we should talk about them seriously instead of like in my morality. Of course, in everybody's morality, if you have, like, you should try to be honest as much as you can. But we are talking about genuine social structures right now, real or imagined, whatever, like legal or just like cultural structures. So I felt that was very disappointing. But the end of the interview was one of the best interviews I feel Brie had ever done.
What part?
One of the people was the one that doesn't talk in the first 40 minutes, the guy who's bearded. I thought he made the great point that whether you think Joe Rogan is making misinformation or spreading misinformation or he's not, people, it's just you got the problem upside down. You should look at it in a reverse way. There are all these cultural fault lines now, and due to a number of reasons, I would argue, frankly, limited, like really bad educational systems and lack of economic opportunities, lack of economic infrastructure. So because of that, people are gonna find like these cultural fault lines and gonna basically define their identity and define their political positioning based on those. And the real problem is probably the fact that institutions have become so, our trust in institutions have become so eroded that, you know, that people that go on Joe Rogan, I don't think they do, but they can cause such like uproar within the media and all that. While the real problem is the fact that the society, not somebody like Joe Rogan, let's say, which I don't agree with, Joe Rogan is spreading complete lies. The fact that he's getting such a level of acceptance in the broader society rather than people who are not spreading whatever, you know, like just so that's the problem. That's the problem. It's not the problem that he's talking to someone. The problem is the level of response he's getting. If you think I don't think that. I think he does a great job. I mean, that's the whole other thing that Brie talks about, and I think is a bit redundant to talk about for us, which is like, who are you to like criticize him? Like CNN? I'm sorry, what? MSNBC, Sam Cedar, Nomoki Kunz, who was going around, oh my God, when I was in Libya, everybody was thanking me about the NATO campaign. I mean, I'm sorry, but you're in no position. Forget about the judgment on Joe Rogan's content. You are not the ones who should be making it. You have no credibility left. I mean, CNN and MSNBC, Jesus Christ.
No, I mean, if you want to just point out all, like, I mean, the person who's best at, you know, he always has a laundry list of like, not even the media being misleading, but because misleading, that's just, you know, And that's actually the biggest problem I find when it comes to like
Intention.
bad news, which is when, it's misleading. The news is misleading because of the way that they've put it together.
Oh
But
yeah,
not
that's true.
even
Yeah.
that, actual times where they shared like fully false stories. So yeah, Glenn is the best at having, a full laundry list of these and pointing him out. And of course, weapons of mass destruction and all this and blah, blah, blah.
Russia
So
gave
yeah,
it as
them
well. Yeah.
saying that, I mean, that's just beyond hypocritical. And I would argue, responsibility. Okay, news organizations have a responsibility, especially the big ones, regardless of their audience size, because of the mission that they claim to have, right? Which is to bring news and this kind of information. Joe Rogan doesn't make any of these claims. If Joe Rogan made a claim like, come to me for like the latest scientific breakdown of this and that, and then he's kind of all over the place, then I'll be like, okay, through this, mission statement that he has, through his about thing, you can make an argument about responsibility, which, the media does. So there I can see, if someone wants to tell the media that they're being irresponsible.
I would say that's the thing. If you say there should be a legislation passed by the government and enforced by the government, then companies that are news companies must adhere to their own mission statements or their own principles or their own thing. Okay, fair enough. But to be honest, when there doesn't seem to be any political will for that. And actually, that's another point that I really didn't like about the beginning of the interview. That, for example, they don't talk about nationalization of any. They are talking about mostly like social media. They don't talk about nationalization. They talk about anti-monopoly systems and all that, which in my view, anti-monopoly systems would lead to the worst of both worlds. We'll have basically these small companies that are cul-de-sacs and they provide bad service as well. So instead of Amazon, we'll have a shitty local version of Amazon that is not even providing the service that Amazon provides. So I think they don't talk about nationalization, but I think responsibility in a society, and that's the whole point of a state structure. That's the difference between living in an fully anarchist or lawless society. Some anarchists would say there is communal systems, but yeah, the whole responsibility and the whole impetus, in my view, rests on a state and legislature. So I don't even like what CNN right now can legally lie, basically, because nobody's enforcing it. So I don't even blame them, because like if you trust them, I think, I mean, I blame you, really. Like you must, at this point, you must be a child or really uneducated and naive to like think MSN, anything that comes out of MSNBC, Fox, CNN, or New York Times for that matter. I mean, New York Times and stuff, as we discussed, like printlet, they have so much that they tend to have some weird stuff. So
no, I mean, sometimes I would like, I would disagree with this, with what you're saying, the responsibility is fully on the viewer or something. But yeah, here I would agree. Let's say if you watch MSNBC you became an adult and you've been watching it for a year or two, and you didn't pick up that, there's often lies that don't match up with what you see a month or two later, it is perhaps, to a certain extent, your fault.
And I don't want to, like Matt Stoller, I don't know if you watched the Matt Stoller interview as well, right?
Yeah.
Like they talk about Federal Reserve and economy. Sadly, it was the shorter version of her interview, so I didn't watch the full one. It was a great discussion, and Matt Stoller, I feel like he's such a, like, I love his analysis a lot of times. He comes across as so sober-minded and analytical. And he was like differentiating between himself as a consumer and himself as a citizen. And then he was saying that, for example, when I'm buying this stuff, I don't really think about like a lot of social implications of my purchase or whatever. But of course, as a citizen, I do. And then Brie was, well, that is extremely maybe dark way of viewing the world, so you don't think there is any change possible through actions of consumer citizens, whatever. And he was like, well, no, I mean, in 60s and 70s there was a connection between the political arm, legislative arm of movements and the and people's activities on the ground, like protest, boycott, whatever. Nowadays, I feel like there isn't. Like the political class has become so separated from the from everything, really, from everything. That but I like this. Like, he gave the perfect view, in
Yeah.
my view, between the balance of personal responsibility and societal, like, responsibility. Because like, you can beat yourself up all the time, but you can't just live like a hermit. Most
Yeah.
people can't.
No, that was
So
an interesting distinction you made.
yeah, I think that's actually good. Like, it's if our theme of the episode is our even adults learning and all that. Is even adults learning, or was they ever? So so I would say that, yeah, exactly. Like, each person has to find it for themselves, but we have to come out. We have to have a definition of what responsibility means, as Thomas Chatterton on Bad Faith said. We have to talk precisely what responsibility means, and where does it lie in a societal thing? Does it lie with politics? Does it lie with private companies? Does it lie with individuals? And I think we are dismissing how much of it lies with the individuals, especially middle class individuals.
Yeah, no, definitely. But I mean, I guess to bring it a little bit back to Joe Rogan thing, though, but there's also an exaggeration with the part of the responsibility, not the fact that believing that everything that Joe Rogan says, right, people are just going to follow it and do it, right? There's a complete misunderstanding here. And I think it's just like the fake,
exaggerated too.
They're like, it's just like the fake news arguments about fake news. And it goes against the entire like literature around media and communication, which is that, yeah, the media can, the media, it's not that it has no effect, right? The media can make a discussion important, by just raising it. Then you have the whole country talking about it. Or, they can introduce one side, but not introduce another side. But the fact that, everything that Joe Rogan is saying, people are just like taking it in and believing, is just simply not, it's just not true. There's no way it is, Do they think that everybody who watches Joe Rogan is unvaxxed? I mean, Joe Rogan has so many opinions and things that he's really into that parts of his audience don't like. So, even before thinking of how much responsibility he has, you also have to dial that back in, the effect of what he says, which is not that everything he says, people are just like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. All right, so now I'm just going to eat meat. Like Joe Rogan says, I'm not going to get
only elk
and not vaccinate and go sleep in like a sleeping chamber, right, that he brings up like every other episode.
That's exactly what I mean by having the problem upside down. Because media in general, from majority of the stuff I've read, media is a reflection of society. Not I of course there is a cyclical relationship between everything, but largely, in my view, media is a reflection of society, and largely a very middle class reflection. Because in majority of societies, it's the middle class, not even the aristocratic, like not even the elite view. It's very much middle class, upper middle class, sort of a urban, sort of a like Charles Dickens, you know what I mean? Like literature, media has always been dominated by a segment and all that, and it's a reflection as far as I'm concerned. So that's exactly what I mean of having it upside down, as in, it's not, people are not like listening to Joe Rogan and following him blindly. It's mostly people who agree, like finding him because they agree with those views, or or it's the relationship is mostly, in my view, reverse. He covers issues that are popular, so people are attracted to him.
Yeah, so that means that the people, like, if someone who watches his show and doesn't go and get the vaccine, if Joe Rogan didn't exist, that person would have most likely done the same thing and just went and listened to that opinion somewhere else, or like 10 other places. Yeah. And this actually brings up to one very good point that the guest again on Briahna's show made, which is that let's just take it that your objective is to, quote unquote, cut down on misinformation, whatever that is, and not allow Joe Rogan to have such an influence. In fact, if you move him off Spotify, if you get your wish to get him kicked out, it will not have the effect of silencing him whatsoever. He can literally go on any other platform, anywhere on internet, and just say the same stuff. And, he might even have a bigger group of diehards now because, they're like, oh, you did this to Joe Rogan. So it's not even a productive thing. In fact, right now on Spotify, it's great for his critiques, because they have a little bit of leverage to, maybe get a guest on. Isn't that more productive? You talk about Joe Rogan has this big audience. Rather than getting him to go to different platform, wouldn't it be better if, you put on whoever your favorite is? And I think he's going to do it now based on his apology video. I'm guessing he's going to have 1 or 2 COVID episodes coming out where he's where he's going to have, some more mainstream, which is normal. If you go look at the people on his show, they often show up on BBC and all these kind of places. He doesn't find them like, in a cave somewhere and like bring them.
I must say they discussed the case of Parler, and I would say there is that argument that trying to Streisand effect, trying to suppress something leads to more attention on it and all that. And I would say that's true when you can't go full-on censorship. When you can go on full-on censorship, it actually works very well.
If
it
you
works
can go
surprisingly well.
But in the Joe case, you most likely can't, right?
Can't, because he's got enough money. But
and it's the US,
Yeah, with Parler, they did go on full and they destroyed that. And there are other cases.
But that's a platform, not a person necessarily. And Joe Rogan is very popular, as they like to point out. So, I mean, they make the point that exactly if they want to silence us, if we lose, the 2 subscribers that we have on YouTube, we're done. It's not like we can go somewhere else and tell them to follow us. But
Spotify, do you want 50 views per week? Can I tempt you?
If your algorithm helps us out, of course.
Of course. If you recommend it and hopefully target people who are sleeping or working, they can't reach their phone to change the video. That's the target of it. But I would say, and the worst part of censorship is for future people. I'm sure a lot of people are seeing what Rogan did and are saying it's not worth it to even bother in this. So that type of thing I do think, but again, I just don't think media matters that much. Like, as you say, like they're like, this is the biggest, I think, liberal disease, the idea that media matters, ideas
to
matter,
the extent in
matter.
the way that they're saying
to the extent, like it's like, that's why I generally sort of associated myself with the Marx, because it's a much more materialistic way of thinking about things rather than this idiotic like liberal fetishism of conversation and the effect of ideas, as if, oh my God, Joe Rogan said that, and these hordes of people are, as if, by the way, he hasn't said anything that controversial anyway. It's the whole thing is just such a, it's just so misrepresented, so misleading, so misunderstood, everything. It's just ridiculous.
And my kind of last point, I think, comes back to my first point about the kind of person Joe Rogan is, which is at least Joe Rogan is being honest. And in fact, these people who want to tell him to like behave certain way, they actually want him to lie, because he is walking the talk. Like when he says that, he doesn't want the vaccine, he doesn't think this or X, Y, he hasn't taken it. So he's just presenting his own point of view. So these people actually want him to go on his show and lie.
To lie.
They want him to be dishonest, whereas he's being honest. I mean, and like I've said before, you're allowed to be wrong, and I'm sure he's been wrong about a million things, and he'll continue to be wrong about a million things.
It's just, it annoys me that he hasn't said anything half as controversial as someone who came on TV and said, I am science. You recall Dr. Fauci? He said, I am science. Like, nobody's worried about that, or when Joe Rogan had McMaster on and he espoused complete lies about Middle East, like, and everything else, military, everything, complete 3 hours of a lie. And then nobody was worried about that, So the hypocrisy and all that, it's so much. You don't even know how do I even engage with this criticism? Because it's almost like they're talking about something that only exists in their imagination.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of Briahna's point.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. She was like, this doesn't even add up.
On the Briahna show, I was surprised that I feel like this is a clear distinction. I don't know if you feel that, but they kept saying, because Spotify pays Joe Rogan now and all that. It's more editorial. It's more blah, blah, blah. He's more like an employee, like let's say for a New York Times or something. I don't think so. I think there is an employee relationship and there is a contractor relationship. And in my view, when you're like, Joe Rogan is more like a contractor for Spotify. So I don't think it's just Spotify has more responsibility because they have like a contract for 100 million now or whatever.
Yeah, I don't see that at all either. And I mean, he's not speaking on behalf of Spotify, right? Like, I mean, in news outlets, usually like the reporting done by the journalists, the newspaper stands behind that. When they don't, like in the opinion pieces, they quickly say, you know, these
It's
opinions don't
opinion
represent
piece,
New York Times or whatever. Yeah, so I mean, Joe Rogan, he's not representing Spotify. He's just simply on that platform. Now they found this new difference, right? Yeah, they point out to the fact that no, but the difference between Joe
I found
Rogan
it
and
very
X, Y, and
disingenuous.
Z is that Joe Rogan's actually getting paid by Spotify and to be there.
All right. No, it's just
Yeah.
I thought
No, I
maybe
agree
I'm
with you
missing
there.
something.
Yeah.
But I don't see any different. Like it's almost like he could be argued he's the highest paid podcaster on Spotify. I mean, I'm sure if somebody else comes up with a fan base that big, they pay them, you know, for exclusive, right? So,
and I mean, others, we also get paid on YouTube. I mean, you know, through the
I mean, you could
advertising. I
argue
understand it's different, but
you get paid on YouTube. I mean, that's a technical, it's a marketplace. It's not hiring you. So there is a legal difference there. But
I mean,
even
and
now,
they enter into a partnership with you, though. I mean, that's what they
true.
call it. They call it YouTube partner program.
That's my point, though. It's a contracting situation. You're having a contract with them, or they're contracting something to. So it's not an employee-employer relationship, first of all, and second of all, as you said, even if it was, it doesn't mean necessarily you stand by. Like, does every company stand by their every? Like, I'm sure there are companies all around the world that hire misogynist and anti-gay people and racist people. Like, but that's not the like he's a mechanic. Like, you know, what does that have to do with anything? I just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I think that parallel doesn't really work. I mean, the first one, like Naomi Kuntz, she tries to make it the hardest. She's actually like the most on this because she keeps on connecting them to New York Times and others. She's like, New York Times fact checks, and anyway, we can see how well that goes. And and anyway, on video is different. It's also the limitations. You can't even technically, like, if Spotify was going to, if YouTube were going to fact check, you know, everything that is being quote unquote said, or Spotify, I mean, no episode would ever be released unless you want to do it, you know,
a month to
specifically,
and
for,
then
for
you have to put
X or Y or Z.
And first of all, anybody who's done any graduate studies or undergraduate studies knows that science is not a settled thing. There is no specific answers for a lot of the stuff that Joe Rogan, and he does a lot more fact checking than anyone I've seen. I would say one of the attractions I had to watch some of his shows about like mystical stuff was about the fact that I knew that he's going to do some internet fact checking. And then Naomi Kuntz, I think, she uses the example of Bill Kristol, one of the biggest liars of Iraq War. A man had, I don't think he's had it, like he said, like true word in his whole life. He's like, with all the criticism that we have from them. Oh my God, I forgot about that now that you mentioned it. It's just, oh my God, just go quit journalism and go become a lobbyist already, you useless person.
And I mean, even the media, as much as you can be critical of the media's report, and I mean, I'm thinking of this, and I think this is my current position, no matter how critical you can be of the media's reporting during like the Iraq war, I would still find it a stretch if you blame, like, you know, the people who you know, the civilians who died during the Iraq war on the media. Maybe they didn't help it, but I mean, you know, there's a direct, but there was a direct group of people, aka the military, who went in that country and they killed. So even towards the media, I wouldn't have such a harsh stance that they're having on Joe Rogan.
Exactly. And again,
they didn't do a good job, that's for sure. But I mean, you know, putting the blame is just exactly. So blaming the deaths of anybody who doesn't take the vaccine or something on Joe Rogan or their behavior and stuff, I mean, it's completely unfair.
I mean, it's just to use an analogy, and I know I've said analogies are usually bad and all that, but I think this is a perfect one. cheerleaders, how much effect cheerleading team has on a team's performance. That is exactly the same. The coach is the, let's say, president or whatever. Those are the real. I don't even have, like, I don't think soldiers have much responsibility. They have some responsibility in a volunteer army, but majority of responsibility are with political decision makers and those who elect them, mostly citizens who vote and citizens who don't vote, some of them. So I think, yeah, that's where the responsibility lies, not with the cheerleader team. But but it is disgusting to see some people cheerleading for views that I disagree with. But again, that's a very subjective thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, Joe, the person who, if people like, have to be relatively responsible for their own behavior when it comes to the COVID thing. So, Joe Rogan is sharing his opinions. It's still nevertheless the person who goes, and I'm not the person on, being like, you see it 100% just on the person and stuff. I understand where, you can blame other things, you can blame maybe education, the person's family, where they grew up, all of these things that made them think in that way. But Joe Rogan didn't go and like inject COVID into people or like kill them or anything like that.
It's like, because we can't do anything about economic and educational system infrastructure, really, which is 90%, I think, is that 90% of reasons why like people make bad choices and people have tough lives is lack of infrastructure, lack of economic support. And because you can't do anything about that, liberals prefer to talk about the things that have like 1% influence on our lives, like media or books or ideas and all. It's ridiculous.
No, spot on. I think I'm just looking at my notes. I think we've pretty much talked about anything there is really about however, from whichever angle you look at it.
But I love their idea that we should go. I'm gonna email Spotify tonight with our 50 plus subscriber base. I feel like we can pull off a good deal there. I don't think. Do you think they even respond or?
Yeah, they might.
they might.
This is a good opportunity for Okay, Sam, actually, before we move on to Whoopi Goldberg, I forgot about this clip that I wanted to share about this caller who called in to Briahna's debrief call-in show. So let's just listen to this clip quickly.
I've become increasingly kind of like bitter and jaded about a lot of the online left. I mean, I'm not saying you because you've worked on a political campaign, you have skin in the game. There are people who have skin in the game, but it seems so much of like the modern left is like its own self-sustaining ecosphere. And it's totally separate from real world politics. And, for all the shit we can give AOC and the squad and all this other stuff, at the very least, they kind of put their money where their mouth is. And especially Teslin's episode made me realize this. Like, who is our equivalent of the Federalist Society? Where's the kind of like borderline sociopathic leftist politician? No, like I'm talking like where the fuck is like the left wing voter caging, gerrymandering, Supreme Court rigging? And I'm increasingly beginning to realize, maybe with the gutting of any kind of like real authoritarian lefts, I don't mean to sound like a fucking like red brown fash over here, but I think I promise my question's almost done. I just think and maybe that Anna or Hannah, whatever, the one that's always talking psychology, maybe she can elaborate on it. But I wonder if like people like Jonathan Haidt talk about progressive-minded people being very high on like empathy, in terms of traits, but I don't like, from my marginal kind of association with DSA types, I don't find progressives and leftists to be particularly like aggressive or highly competitive people. And I think there's something about the right, the way they circle the wagon, they have that like built-in kind of tribalism and the way they're like extremely cutthroat in how they do their politics. Sometimes I wonder if it's not just the profit-based model that we're like
If
fighting.
there's something constitutional, like in our nature, that makes us less suited to that sort of stuff.
Okay, so I think the first part, I mean, there are two things that caught my attention here. I think the first part, he talks about people on YouTube being completely detached from, you know, political life, like YouTubers like us, I guess, or bigger ones, which, you know, I feel for some it is true.
bigger
I mean,
ones.
for us, it's definitely true. We're quite detached, I think, from politics and politics on the ground. So I think that was a fair criticism or fair point to make. Go ahead.
No, that's the part I disagree with. But maybe you want to talk about the second point before I jump into
No, it's good. You can disagree. I mean, do I disagree? I mean, I think it's true though. I think for
who
some.
is I never understand what is the political underground, who is connected to it.
Yeah, so he means, I think he means like, you know, they don't go and protest, for instance, you know, or they don't go and try to get this person elected or that person. I would assume that's what he means. What do you think he means?
I mean, in the beginning, he talks about that they're a separate ecosystem and like almost like a cul-de-sac or self-sustaining, like a closed system. And I do agree with that, but I think that's how society works. I mean, this idea that there was ever this great relationship between like, oh, you know, the leftists and the society, and they were in tune. I mean, of course, there are ebbs and flows within the history, but I just think it's a huge exaggeration to say now is like anything, because he said, I am increasingly become bitter. So that means that he's increasing, like he thinks
but maybe
this is getting worse.
Picked up on it recently, or maybe, you know, a second observation that he recently started.
But I think all politics is very, I mean, majority of people don't care about. Majority of people have very much more important and interesting things.
Yeah, but I think he would say that, you know,
politics.
you're on YouTube and talking about politics and news. It would be good if, you know, you followed that with some kind of action or something.
Oh, well, what kind of action though? Like, I'm
like
sorry,
I said, like protesting and stuff. I mean, I'm just
guessing. That's okay. You know my views on that. But I would say I talking about this stuff when, I mean, that's where I think you should talk about his second points, and I have something to add there, to be honest.
Yeah, so I mean, you can go ahead. People heard the clip. So I think his second point is really what the second point is really what I wanted to share with you, because it kind of reminded me of some of the stuff you kind of say, you know, that on the left, there aren't any, like, you know, sellouts who are doing, you know, the bidding of the left. So not sell out and go join the corporatists or the right wingers or something.
Yeah, I completely agree that he's like, I am frustrated. I share his frustration that, you know, there is no federalist of the left. There are not politicians that are willing to do anything, you know, pack the courts.
Yeah, that was so funny the way he said it. He's like, where's the leftist, like, gerrymandering?
The ring, yes. Supreme Court packing. It is true. I think that's the way to go. But where is it? I mean, why the right always has that is because the right has money. I mean, you have to take that into account. People tend to not take to that account at all. Like, why right is so more organized? Why right is so much more unified? Because they have money. Because after, for example, New Deal, some of the richest people in the USA started handing out checks to some of the most reactionary thought leaders to create an infrastructure for these idiots to rise, like Bill Kristol. And that type of thing. So that's one thing. Secondly, because left doesn't offer since 60s and 70s, they don't even offer, you don't have money, at least offer power. No, we don't want to have, nobody should be in leadership position. Every leadership should consist of 6 different people from 6 different backgrounds, from 6 different orientation, from 7 different colors and 9 different social backgrounds. Of course, nobody who's interested in packing courts and, you know, gerrymander they all gonna go to the right because you don't offer money or power. So why should anybody come to you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with those two, right? And although sometimes the left in some situations has money, right? So people will point out to, like, Bernie, you know, managed to raise a lot of money, but overall left and right throwing the money around, that's true. And another one, which I've made this point several times, and it's just a hunch that I have, that perhaps, like, you know, just the left, I mean, there are a bunch of reasons why the left can't unify, right? There's not only one reason, but one, I wonder if really the left, different. Yeah, but one that I really wonder, like, not Democrats, but beyond that, really the left, which is, like, you know, I've made this point, I think even last time, where on the left, it's just so it's just so common to criticize and critique and like, get into arguments over like one part of something that, you won't be able to unify over
That's
anything with anyone, because there are always points of disagreement, and then it just turns into, all about that point of disagreement.
I think I mentioned this one, our last episode or the one before. There is this thing that people talk about, the left has this disease of like fetishization of a small differences, and yeah, I think there is a truth to that too. Like they get bogged down by like differences and they can't. Yeah,
and critiquing is such a big part of being left.
Yeah,
right? I mean, for me, Marx is so many things. He has written so many different things, different ideas, but like Marxism, one of the main things, the way that I understand it, and maybe this is wrong, is that it's a critique of like the capitalist society, right? Like that's like the biggest thing that it does. It's a critique. And then, right now we're dealing with the Frankfurt School a lot, and their main thing was critical theory.
There is a difference.
It's just so at the heart of it, I feel, on the left, of being critical and pointing out criticisms that maybe gets in the way of forming, coalitions or whatever, unifying over things.
I still think the 90% of the issue is the money, but money and infrastructure, like years of spending money on universities and think tanks. But you were talking about,
Marx and the Frankfurt School.
Yeah, Marx. I think there should be a difference between a critique and a critical look. Critical look is, in my view, when you are assessing something in a reasonable manner instead of just accepting anything, like, for example, accepting the Christian narrative for what it is. No, of course, Christian narrative probably has some good, some accurate stuff, but there are probably some inaccurate stuff. So that's how I wouldn't say, like, that's the thing. I don't like Marx when he's too critical. I like his description, because I think his description is a critical description, which is the most accurate. But it's not necessarily
even that critical description. I think even that still supports my point, because when you look at things critically, you can't just gloss over them. Whereas,
you can't,
on the right, it seems like, they can, like, okay, yeah, this thing we don't really agree, but let's forget about it anyway. Whereas on the YouTube world is the worst. I mean, you can just see how insanely like fragmented it kind of is, and like everybody seems to be at each other's throats, or a lot of people.
That's the part that going back to my argument about, like, it's always been like that. I mean, look at I'm reading about ancient Rome right now. I'm reading a book about ancient Rome, and you had all these sects, you have all these cults that they had no connection to each other. They were very cul-de-sac-y and all that. So I don't know if YouTube is anything worse than others. Or...
No, I'm not saying worse. I'm just saying it's just one example. I was just pointing out as an example of somewhere where you can see this.
I think social media has allowed us to really see human interaction at a level never seen before, and it's giving us all these insights. And I think the most important of these insights is that humanity has never changed, no matter how much education, information.
But just coming back to my point, I think I got this idea from you, actually, from you talking about the Taliban and saying that, the easiest thing for Taliban was to fight the Americans. While they were fighting the Americans, they had this unified objective, right? And then when the Americans are gone, now there's a chance that you'll see more fragmentation among Taliban groups and leaders and all this. So I'm wondering if on the left, someone like Bernie is, someone who can make people forget about their differences, because everybody was so excited about Bernie. And, so maybe like a leader or someone on the top could make people forget about some of these differences, or still argue about them, but still have a common goal that they move towards. But now in the US, it's really looking like, a lost cause, for any kind of real progressive advancements at the federal level, at least.
Just going back to like the Taliban thing, this is not something I came up with or anything, but if anybody's interested, I think I mentioned him before. Charles Tilly, I think, was the person who wrote fantastically about the state, and Eric Hobsbawm famously about a state formation and the role that war
Mhm.
played in a state and formation and in national formation. And they specifically, I think Eric Hobsbawm talks about like European example of how war leads to formation of states and how
Mhm.
states lead to war. So there is a cyclical relationship. And I think, yeah, that was the case with Taliban. And I think, yeah, you're right. A leader right now on the left, like Jeremy Corbyn, like Bernie Sanders, that were people like we saw when they come, there is energy there.
Yeah.
But the problem is that it's extremely hard to get somebody that principled, to find somebody that
Yeah.
principled. Even, I mean, even Bernie is far
And effective,
more centrist
principled and
and
relatively effective, right?
Or
Bernie
at-
Sanders,
yeah,
compared to other major leftists, he is quite effective. Definitely not effective enough, but he is
I
far
don't
more
even
effective than others.
I don't
At just
even
raising a
high
profile,
ranking,
yeah,
for sure, for sure,
yeah,
high ranking
exactly.
for sure.
More
But-
like high profile, I meant perhaps than
Yeah,
effective.
exactly. But you have to be effective to be that to have risen to the level of a senator. So yeah, it does seem very disappointing. I mean, we're going to talk about somebody who's throwing her hat back into the ring. And yes,
Oh,
sadly, I
Nina,
agree with
yeah.
you. Currently, everything looks pretty
Yeah.
tragic.
But okay, so maybe it's a good time to have some fun. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg replaced Elizabeth Holmes for me. This, the Elizabeth Holmes story
In
is just
2
getting
minutes.
a bit old and stuff. There's nothing new. But Whoopi
Oh my
Goldberg
God.
managed to come on, and
I
love
yeah,
this.
I
The
love her.
clip is amazing. The clip is amazing. Her actual apology the next
Is
day
even
on
more
The View.
amazing.
No, the one on The View was okay because she does two
I
things.
didn't see the one
Yeah,
on the
there's
View.
one
She
on The
apologized.
View. Yeah, the next day before she gets suspended, where it's not like the Jon Stewart one. I mean, not the Colbert
Stephen
one.
Colbert.
The Stephen Colbert one. I mean, we'll talk about it, but I mean,
It's awful.
it was so
It was the
childish.
worst.
The ending was
It was
ridiculously
non-apology.
childish. Yeah, but I think on The View, if I'm not mistaken, people correct me when I've heard this. The next day she does
Finally.
yeah, as if she understood the issue.
I thought she
But
got suspended.
Yeah, this was before she got suspended. So if I'm not mistaken that, but the Colbert one made no sense. Her tweet made no sense. And it's just funny how it's like as if she's not getting though, like what the conversation is, which is the funny part. Like that's one of the funny parts.
Anybody who has spent, as you know, the average age of my people who I hang out with is, I think the mean comes around something around 78 or something. So like I have lots of contacts with old people.
Yeah.
So I think she's not changing her mind. And it's frankly, why do you like?
Because she's old.
Yeah, because she's old and she's been thinking that way for many years. But I must say the level of arrogance, both in the original video, man, there are 4 other people saying, no, it's about race. It's about race. And she doesn't even say World War II wasn't about race or blah. She says Holocaust, a specific program created to get rid of a specific people isn't about race. I mean, I know race is a social construct, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, Nazis did adhere to a certain understanding of, oh my God, that was just like that. And then 4 people are like, no, it was about race and stuff. And she's like, no, shh, don't talk.
And they were clear and concise in the way that they responded to her. It wasn't like a word salad. It was very like quickly. No, the Nazis saw the Jews as a different race. Very quickly, they were all like very well putting it.
And it's so annoying that she's like, no, man, you're muddying the water. It's about, why don't you call it what it is? Humans. What are you talking about? You're calling it what it is. It's racism. Oh my God, that was so good.
Everything is
funny.
human, how human treat people. So I mean, slavery was also how one group of human treated other
call it
humans.
No, Cham, call it what it is. It had nothing to do with race. It had to do with people treating other people. I mean,
but her stubbornness was so.
Yeah, and then she came on Colbert and she was like, "Oh, don't write to me. I know how you feel."
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, have you know? Like, I mean, it's just betrays. By the way, her level. I mean, I don't understand. That's why I think her response was one of the main reasons we decided to call this episode "Is Adults learning where was they ever, because like, I mean, look at these people. They like, she doesn't know anything about history, does she? Like,
Yeah,
I don't even, that's the thing. I
it's
don't
more
think
the
she's that
stubbornness
person.
and not knowing and just the confidence, and then exactly the way she was telling, she kept on, right now we'll play another clip soon, actually, towards the end of this. I don't want to get mixed, where she actually was a bit more humble, it seems, a year or two ago. But here she was just like absolutely refusing. No, 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 no. Just like this, like what
Yeah,
you
it
were
was
saying.
call
And then
it
on
what
the
it is.
Colbert, it was so, and then she
Yeah,
ends the
yeah, call
Colbert
it.
one like a stubborn
So
little
awkward.
kid. She's like, I guess I just won't talk about it anymore.
Yeah. You don't like what I say? Well, you can't handle it, bitches. What? Again, and then I would say I was surprised. Katie Halperin, Briahna did a great stream, by the way, which you missed out because unlike me, you have a life and you have to like do things besides spending your whole life behind a computer. But they had a great thing, and I was surprised at how understanding everybody is towards her.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
again, like I don't think she's a racist. I don't think
Yeah.
she meant any ill intent. But if you're that uneducated and if you're that out of the loop with history,
Yeah.
maybe you shouldn't be on primetime TV. I know you're an actor. You're a very good actor. I love The Ghost. Was it The Ghost or Ghost as a movie? I love Sister Acts and all that. But maybe you shouldn't like do commentary on social issues
Yeah.
if you're that, uneducated about Holocaust. Jesus Christ.
Man,
There is like, have you not seen any movies like for oh my god,
but
it
you're
was
right.
just
People were
ridiculous.
so nice and understanding.
They were
Everybody
so
saw where
nice.
the issue came from. There's only one person who
Yeah.
didn't. Did you see that clip I sent you? I forgot to ask you to watch it. It's on The Hill, this Democrat strategist
Oh
who
yeah,
has the
yeah.
worst take. I'll play the
Yeah,
clip right now.
Look, I think when you're talking about the Holocaust, it's such a nuanced discussion that, like, stay away from it. Like, let historians talk about the Holocaust. Let people who are experts talk about it in, like, a nuanced conversation. Whoopi Goldberg is probably not the person to be getting into a nuanced conversation about what the Nazis were thinking during the 1940s.
Yeah, I'm sure that she's not alone in her confused understanding of the Holocaust. I would just like to say, however, that the Holocaust was not a nuanced situation. You had Nazis who hated Jews and wanted to exterminate them and tried their hardest to do that. I don't think re-education for Whoopi Goldberg is the answer. I don't think we need to send her packing off to get a better understanding of the Holocaust. She's an older woman. She's had plenty of time to get her understanding, and this is where she's landed. In terms of having her kicked off The View for 2 weeks, what is this, some kind of like cancellation light? It's absurd. She's going to come back with the same views that she has now. And if she has audiences and people want to watch her show, then, I guess we should just let them. But yeah, the Holocaust is not nuanced. It's a classic Jew killing scenario.
Just to be clear, I didn't say the Holocaust was nuanced. I said conversations around the Holocaust are nuanced. Yeah.
I would disagree with you on that one too. I don't think there's a lot of nuance in, a brutal fascist
maybe we could say that
race.
Maybe we could say that the development of the constructions of ethnicity and race over history are nuanced in the way that they intersect with each other.
Let me just play the clip. Okay, I played the clip. So he's like, no, you shouldn't talk about it because a nuanced conversation. And then that girl was ready to jump on his throat.
That girl,
He's the only guy who's had a bad take.
I agree. I mean, even he had to backtrack that. No, I didn't mean
that wasn't
Holocaust
good.
He was like, I didn't mean Holocaust I meant conversations around Holocaust. I love
She's like, that too. She's like,
the girl was just like, I would like to clarify, Holocaust wasn't a nuanced situation. It was pretty clear cut what was going on.
Only a Democrat strategist, whatever that even means. That's the title.
It means you're the biggest loser in history. That's what it is.
The only person with a bad take. Maybe they'll add us to that list. But based on what I've seen, he's the only guy who had a bad take. But I want to touch on your stubbornness of old people, though. On perhaps some old people, because it just reminded me of this conversation that I had with someone like 10 years ago, this person older. So it's very common that you hear when they say that, okay, if your dog is sick, and they're like, they usually go eat grass, and they're like, oh, that's good because it makes them puke. So then this one vet told me once, she was like, yeah, they say that, but it's not necessarily that good, because sure, maybe at first they puke, but you have to be careful they don't eat more grass, because then they'll just puke grass, right? So that was her thing. And I was trying to tell this older guy, I was like, this vet was actually telling me, like, no, impossible, no, it's really good for them and stuff. And this person was so stubborn, and I was like, I mean, you think I care? Like, sure, I'm just saying what this vet told me, maybe she knows more. But his stubbornness, Whoopi Goldberg's stubbornness on this issue during that time, at least, and during the Colbert show, just remind me of that. So yeah, I mean, maybe once you're old at some point, you just refuse.
I think, I mean, of course, I'm talking, generally and in a fun way.
Yeah, no, same,
whatever.
me too. Please.
But I would say I genuinely believe after 30, 35, it is almost impossible for people to change. And I kind of get it. As I'm getting older, I get it. You just get tired of trying to balance your views, and you just want to get, okay, now I know this and I'm comfortable with this. It's hard to be always questioning your own motivation and your own beliefs. But yeah, I find that especially older people of a certain generation, I don't want to say the word that upsets you, but they have a tendency to be extremely
but young people can also be stubborn. I mean, maybe I want to take some of it
one of them
back. I'm kind of regretting saying this a bit, but
me too.
It's just because it reminded me so much of this older person who refused to take such a simple thing that I was trying to tell him.
And I just remembered we're going to talk about a very young person that is,
true.
I mean, that really exemplifies everything you just said.
But
so I think we are backtracking from our ageist take.
Yeah.
But I do continue to emphasize that I do think Whoopi should not be commenting on any social issues based on her
at this point,
information level.
But a few weeks ago, I have 2 more points to get back. A few weeks ago, I told you, we're talking about famous people just being surrounded by yes men. And I was like, maybe if you're surrounded too much by yes men, then you'll be so detached. Maybe that's her issue. Maybe
how yes men do they have to be to go? Holocaust wasn't about race. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. I mean, come on.
They could have just ignored it. She could have possibly been going around and making this point for a long time. And then suddenly she made it in the wrong place. So,
I don't know, man. Like there were 5 people who probably hang out with her regularly, and they were all shocked. And it was so. I mean, again, I don't say she should be canceled. She shouldn't act or anything, but it doesn't seem that her job fits her expertise, do they? Yeah. I don't get it. Yeah. It was so stupid. It was just so stupid.
Let's talk about the cancellation. And I mean, she didn't cancel the suspension. It's of course whitewashing on whoever the network side it is. It's just, let's forget about this issue.
Getting her hands clean.
I think they're doing her a little bit of a favor too. Because it's only 2 weeks. No, not only that. They're doing a favor, as in, like, if she's not understanding the thing, she might come on and keep on make the same point 1 or 2 more times, and this time really start digging a big hole for herself. Because as you said, everybody's so nice, everybody kind of, they're like, we get what you're saying, but maybe
you need to read the book. There is a movie called Schindler's List. You might want to check it out. Your ex-boyfriend made it. So she used to date Spielberg.
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm blanking. Now I'm not sure, but I think she used to. Yeah, and like that's the thing. And you call her real name isn't Goldberg.
Yeah.
I mean, her. I don't get it. Like, how can you date Steven Spielberg and like, no, man, Holocaust doesn't matter. Again, I still don't think she had any ill intentions, but I do think we should have some standards of educational level. I mean, information level before you comment on historical matters or whatever.
And couple that with her stubbornness, that is really what
was the crazy
because if she wasn't that stubborn, or if she wasn't that famous or something, she would have been like, yeah, true. Sorry, whatever, I meant kind of this, and like you would, even if she still hadn't understood, she would have just joined.
I mean,
hold on,
this
I have my
could
favorite
not
clip
believe.
though. Let's not
That's
forget
the
about
thing.
my favorite clip. Yeah,
That's what I was. When you told me about that, I could not believe that. I could not believe that. So go, yeah,
So,
introduce.
I mean, this is a clip from from not a few years ago, maybe like 6 months or a year before Joe Biden became president. And Joe Biden has a doctorate in the sense of PhD in education. But Whoopi Goldberg somehow got in her head that she's a doctor. So let's just watch the clip for a second.
I'm hoping Dr. Jill becomes a Surgeon General. His wife. Joe Biden's wife, because she, you know, he would never do it, but she's a hell of a doctor. She's an amazing doctor.
I thought she was a doctor and
PhD.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I think she's a teacher, but you know, might be good for Betsy DeVos's post.
yes.
Okay. Now that I watch the clip, what amazes me the most about this clip is the lie that, because since Jill Stein is not actually a doctor, there is no way that she could know. It sounds like
amazing
Jill
doctor.
Stein operated on like her cousin's knee, and like exactly. That's the vibe I get. You know, it's like someone's like, no, he's such a good doctor. My uncle went and saw him. You know, nobody thought he could fix his back or knee, but no, look at him. But that one, she backed up. That's what I'm saying. Maybe that one she couldn't argue back when people said, no, she's an education.
It was so good. It was so good, man. I couldn't believe it. She was amazing doctor, fantastic. My father had a heart problem. I don't know, like, or maybe she genuinely, knows more than us. Maybe Whoopi Goldberg is spending her nights reading about the education system. I've read her thesis, fantastic about education. Really good doctor, good doctor of education.
Maybe that's what she meant.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't understand. How can you make a comment like that and it still not get, like, that's the thing. How she is still allowed to go on comment on politics?
I think once again we can be understanding towards her, which I get where this confusion comes from. Although it doesn't excuse her like additional lies, right? So she could have been like, "Oh, I thought she was a medical doctor," but not her additional. "Oh, she's such a terrific or amazing doctor."
My uncle's heart is fixed because of her. What are you talking? She's not.
But we've talked about this before. How it is confusing and misleading in general society for people who have PhDs to go call themselves a doctor, because she's not the only person who's confused like this. And it doesn't mean that a medical doctor is smarter than someone who wants to have a PhD. I'm looking forward to have a PhD one day. They just have nothing to do with one another. They're different areas and fields. And I think we should just reserve the word doctor for medical doctors and make life easier.
I mean, or bring back physician. I am up for bringing back physician. Just refer to doctors that are medical as physician. But I would say it's really funny you mentioned that there's this audio drama from BBC I love. I forget the name, Flight, whatever. It's about this very small private airline company. It's got Benedict Cumberbatch before he became famous, Roger Alam. Roger Alam is one of my favorite actors of all time. Best voice out there in the whole world. But they have a whole episode about the fact that they're an airline and somebody has a heart problem. And they keep like trying to shame them into, yes, if anyone is a doctor and might want to help out, we wouldn't mind somebody. And then at the end, the guy just walks into he comes to the pilot and stuff. He says, "I'm a doctor in engineering, in urban engineering, you asshole."
So it's a big confusion, I think. Needs to be so. Once again, we can understand where Whoopi's coming from. Although, in the recent case, doesn't excuse the stubbornness, and in the second case, it doesn't excuse the additional lies.
How?
I'm glad I remembered this, because then Whoopi's other excuse is like, I'm just thinking of how we would explain this to people and kids, and how this is. I'm like, others don't seem to be having this problem. People have been learning about the Holocaust for a while.
Oh my God, it was too good. And I still do think I love her as an actor and all that. I think she was very funny and good, but I do think there needs to be a reconfiguration of based on what like a standards do we allow people to comment on politics? That's all.
Yeah, I mean, or at least just, don't be so stubborn. Just be a bit more humble.
Yeah, that too. I mean, as a certified and known arrogant dick, I don't know if I can say that, but I hope. I'll try to be better. Whatever.
Anything else you want to mention here with Whoopi?
No, not really. I think we are pretty much done.
God damn it! No, this can't be the end of this. Whoopi, please,
please,
please.
I love to know your views on the Armenian genocide. Tell us about the Armenian genocide. Just go. Just talk.
All right, Sam. So I guess we unfortunately have to move past Whoopi Goldberg, although I'm trying to think if I can make one more point, but something, anything, but I can't. So let's move on to our next story about Johann Hari. Why don't you first tell us a little bit about this gentleman, his recent book, and then we'll get into the more interesting parts, perhaps.
Of course. I must say it has been a very, very interesting and exciting week with Whoopi coming out with her new bit, and then Johann Hari. And just giving a very brief introduction to the gentleman, although I don't want to spoil too many things as we discussed the two fantastic articles by these two writers, which I hope...
You're not saying that ironically.
No. The articles are fantastic.
Yeah.
The article, but the book that the author has, that's a different story. I would love to have one of these guys, by the way, if we actually be willing to come on our channel, because I thought their criticisms was, and I haven't been... So, Johann Hari, he's an author who recently had a book out about our attention and how our attention is under attack by the great and powerful algorithm and social media companies. But that's not it. It goes beyond social media, as he says. And this guy has written books before. Personally, I knew him from his writings on psychology, depression, and environment. And while in his interviews, he came across as a very reasonable man, when you do read his books, you find out he's not very reasonable. And he's one of those authors that write about scientific stuff in a very magazine-y, opinion-eddy, New York Times-y way, which I despise, which is you write about a scientific issue with like some very little knowledge, as Alexander Pope would put it, that, you know some stuff, and you just use that to construct these bullshit arguments that, in my view, that are actually not very nuanced, even though they pretend to be. So he's an author. He's studied at Cambridge, I believe.
He's a journalist. I mean, right? I mean, kind of.
Author / journalist.
Yeah, exactly.
And his recent book, he decided to write his book after it came to his attention that he can't focus very well. And a lot of young people are working on this Snapchat, attention time, whatever he says that. And I'm so glad that we were on to him early. I mean, this is like, if this channel ever, we grow beyond the 5 subscribers that we have, I would love it if like that would be something we associated to it with, which I called him out very early on. We read an article that was a part excerpt, so we didn't decide
excerpt of his book,
what's the correct pronunciation on that one. So whatever Kam said of his book, and we already made quite a lot of fun of him. He was the guy, if anybody has seen our video before, he was the guy who outed his godson as a porn addict and went on to, he, like somebody we will discuss later in this video, some very mysterious guy. He's also very good at hiding people's identities in a way that nobody would figure it out except anybody who reads the article.
He pretty much he changed his godson's last name, but then he mentions as his godson, so anybody who knows the author himself, whose name appeared on the article, can easily know who the hell he's talking about. So he didn't do much service.
Dropped out of his school at age 9, porn addict, disgusting Snapchat. Why are you doing this?
And he's like blaming social media on like the son, on his godson being distracted. And then he names 3 things. I think one of them was Snapchat, if I'm not mistaken. But then the second one is porn, which is not really social media. And then the third one is WhatsApp. which is not really a social media outlet in the same way. You
Yeah, I
chit
mean,
chat to your
both-
friends.
yeah.
So he couldn't even back it with like a proper anecdotal example that made sense. And we'll get back to the anecdotalness of
Oh my
his
God.
whole
Hey,
argument.
So porn is very social media, depending on what website.
I guess so.
It was just, he's fantastic. And then he's, I was thinking this, he's an example of how far you can get with a British accent. It's just, if you have a good posh British accent, you can get very far. You can just go, our attention it's not your fault. Attention is under attack from all sides, social media, but it goes beyond that.
And the key thing to understand is that your attention didn't collapse, right? We keep thinking, I thought, there's something wrong with me. I'm not strong enough. My willpower isn't strong enough. Your attention didn't collapse. Your attention's been stolen from you by a really big range of forces. We've got to understand what those forces are, and they range quite widely. There's some aspects of our tech, it's not all of our tech, but they range from the food we eat, which is ruining our focus, to the sleep we no longer get, to the hours we overwork and exhaust ourselves.
Crystal, it goes beyond that. So, it can get you very far. Just try, instead of studying, going to university, like this stupid person has done, you should really focus on changing your accent. Anyway,
a British accent has a lot of weight. You're like,
yeah, I swear to God, right? Even like,
an American one doesn't have the same impact whatsoever.
Mid-Atlantic one, if you can go full, what's his name? What was his name? The guy, Gore Vidal's, Gore Vidal's enemy. Buckley. I'm gonna go full Buckley. I'm from New York.
Does that still exist though? I feel like that's gone.
There are probably a couple of people in upper state New York. But it's more of a teach than accent, really.
So I want to also point out the one crucial aspect of his argument, which is that it's not that, okay, people have problem focusing now, but back in the day, people used to focus a lot more. And one of the professors that you sent me an article points out that in the book, he provides no such evidence that people's focus has deteriorated. Because you can, because, okay, fine, maybe people don't have too much focus now, but it probably was the case back then. There are different kind of distractions, but he provides no evidence. And we haven't been able to read the book, although we read the little extract from it, and also the professor who actually read the article, he points out, he has a nice line, the book, where he says there's no evidence provided, there's some shady one. And the funny part is that some studies that he refers to, the authors have come out of it. The authors have come and tweeted that this guy has misrepresented their study completely, and it doesn't say at all what it's saying. And sorry, did you point out how he had it's not plagiarism issues. He had beyond plagiarism issues. Sorry, I'm jumping at the gun of it here. I'm just getting excited. Sorry.
Let's just start with this. That also, I am very happy that I think it was last week or a week before I said that I hate Breaking Bad, and literally I think
Breaking Points,
whatever. Breaking Bad. So, I like Breaking
what does
Bad.
That have to do with
anything? Clarify. Yeah, this is gonna cause a controversy. I'm doing a Whoopi right now. But, no, Breaking Points, because literally I think it was a day after we recorded that, or it was still in my head, and I saw this guy, my enemy, on Breaking Points, and Crystal going, I've been a huge fan of you for a long time, and I don't know exactly what she was a fan of, because the thing this guy is known for, and it is 10 years ago, but he has never fully explained or apologized for any of it, and I'll get to, that's what I found out in these articles. He's a admitted plagiarist, and he's somebody who has used fake accounts to attack other journalists that are critical of his work. Not
on
to
Wikipedia.
On Wikipedia, and not to also mention that Nick Cohen, among others, have alleged that he uses his friendships and personal relationship to push us for a good coverage in media and stuff, because he's a typical public school boy, in my view. I don't know if he's actually gone to a public school in the UK, by the way. These super posh private schools he's got good connections, clearly. I mean, that it seems to be the main thing he has, more than anything else. But you're right, he's been his previous work, there has been pointed out that he's a plagiarist. There has been pointed out that he's used underhanded online tactics to smear his critics, and he's
Change
admitted.
Wikipedia page if
He's
I'm not
admitted, but not fully explained.
And
But
let me add
because
that to that. And because of those lies that he said, now he put actually like segments of like interviews that he's claimed to have done with like professors and whatever to back his book. He actually has to put clips of it on his website so people believe him, because he went and like he claimed that he had interviewed these people, but he hadn't. He just took their arguments from other places. And again, these articles that you shared with me, one of the professors was saying that he went and listened to some of these audio clips and they didn't really add up, make sense of what he had written in the book. He was like, he's just misinterpreting all of it.
So yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. But I was so happy that, like these type of things, I hope tells you like Breaking Points is not a serious operation. That's just, I'm saying, if you've been a fan of this guy, anyway.
I'm surprised we didn't get any backlash from that last time with our guests, maybe with our viewers about
I've
breaking
already
points.
Alienated, I think.
So we'll see maybe if this time.
Yeah, well, like right now at the moment, I mean, Johann Hari, he brings up this emotion in me, this feeling that I want to fight, not physically, of course. I would never condone or even think about physical violence, but I just love this. Yeah, I hope we get some backlash. But there were two articles, both of them, in my view, very fantastically done. One was by Stuart Ritchie, Johann Hari's Stolen Ideas. There is a little new evidence in his latest book. So that was the first one, and I'd like to read some parts from that. Shall I start?
Please.
Yeah. So this article starts with, what do you get if you repeatedly plagiarize? By the way, I like to point out everything that I read in this article is reference to other things, and definitely check it out. It's on the website. The great, by the way, article title, Unheard, as in herd with an E, as in group of animals. I can't find which
don't worry about it. Through the
is
name, they'll be able to find it.
All right, okay.
To the headline,
what do you get? All right. What do you get if you repeatedly plagiarize other people's work, allegedly fabricate code, and spend hours of your life editing the Wikipedia pages of your rivals under an assumed name to make them look bad? 3 massive book deals. That is so true. Like, that's what he got in the end, right? And in this article, he goes to say, maybe there is nothing wrong with this transformation. He did, after all, apologize after a fashion for the plagiarism and the malicious editing. Perhaps he's now a reformed character worthy of rehabilitation. But as Jeremy Duns has pointed out, Hari has never provided a full account of everything he did wrong. His articles are still online without any flags from newspapers that publish them, and some of them make quite, surprising assertions. Mm-hmm. So, very fantastic article, which points out his background problem. By the way, my headphone I might have to cut that. He goes on to very fantastically, he goes on to go into details about, for example, this is from his second book. The neuroscientist Dean Burnett wrote an exasperated critique of an extract from Hari's second book, Lost Connections, which asked, is everything you know about depression wrong? Hari's condemnatory attitude to antidepressant drug, for example, wasn't exactly nuanced. And he made some truly bizarre and bizarrely untrue points, for example, that if your baby dies at 10 a.m., your doctor can diagnose you with a mental illness at 10:01 a.m. and start drugging you straight away. Like, exactly. He's just these typical idiots. Asshole. Again, the writing belongs to op-ed pages of Guardian. I don't know if you get the same feeling or not from his writing.
At most.
I wouldn't say at most. That is the lowest form of writing opinion. I mean, I can't think of any worse guy.
I mean, the ones in the New York Times are some of the worst. But yeah, probably
Guardian,
everywhere.
New York Times, yeah. I think this is the best description of him and his work. He talks about, I'm fast forwarding through the article. He talks about that despite how true the attention problem Sorry, it must be said, and on closer inspection, the people I know who complain the loudest about not being able to focus are people who still have managed to write tons of columns, scientific papers, or even books in the past years. Even Hari mentions in passing that he wrote a 92,000-word novel while on his Cape Cod getaway, turning the story from an interesting self-help tale into a grotesque humble brag. I mean, grotesque humble brag is the best way to describe this guy.
This writer's hilarious.
I tried to, Crystal, I tried to turn my social studies knowledge into a real thing. So I traveled across the world from Moscow to Melbourne to Monaco to what other M cities are?
Yeah,
please somebody help me.
All M cities. I don't know why.
Yeah. To Malayer. Iranian city. Malayer. Iranian village. He's visited there too. Like this guy, by the way, like points out, for example, that he talks about this thing that Facebook, for example, makes you disconnected from your friends, puts you in groups that puts you in a cul-de-sac. It doesn't allow you to connect with your friends. And well, imagine if you had a feature that you could only contact your close friends. Well, there is no need to imagine. Except Facebook does have exactly the feature that Hari claims it doesn't and couldn't exist. It's called Nearby Friends. It gives you a little map of where your friends are physically at the moment if they have opted in. It's been available since 2014. A 2-second Google search would have enlightened Hari. Maybe he wrote that part of the book while he was in internet-free isolation, because he talks about, oh my God, I created this thing. I put my mobile phone. My mobile phone was in this box, and I couldn't touch this mobile phone and all that. So I love this article that he's, this article, unlike we talk about the second one. This one is more focused on him as a writer, I would say.
Yeah, the second one is more on the points that, that are made in the article. So the actual arguments that are made in the book, sorry.
So let me just finish with the last paragraph from this article. Despite all this, it seems that the media establishment, especially outside the UK, where his unethical past is less known, just can't get enough of him. His first book is apparently being made into a documentary series presented by Samuel L. Jackson. And from what he said in interviews, more nonfiction is forthcoming, not to mention the Cape Cod novel. But this is a writer who's shown himself again and again to be either untrustworthy, unoriginal, or uninformed. If he's right to say that our moments of focus are becoming ever more precious, isn't it time we started paying attention to anyone else? Sorry, I mean, fantastically put. I would love to they talk to this guy, but really enjoy, because I felt I'm going crazy, and you read somebody and you're like, okay, I'm not mad. He's a grifter, and he lives in Griftopia. So
and I mean, why do you think that okay, to be serious for a second, of course, I mean, I don't know if you have your phone next to you and all this stuff, and someone's messaging you, you're checking your emails all the time, you will get distracted. So I mean, nobody's disagreeing that. He just, the way that he turns it, and the narrative and the scientific backing, and on top of that, his thesis that people are less and less able to focus, it's all of that that turns it into a bullshit thing. But why do you think that it's so popular? And I think I'm just going to play the clip right now, a second, from when he goes in this Australian news show and what the anchor says in the beginning. So let's just listen quickly.
This really hit home to me, Johann. Today, when I was preparing to talk to you, I was so excited to talk to you. I think this topic is absolutely deeply fascinating and urgent. I sat down to read some briefing notes that our team had prepared about the book. I listened to you, and yet when I was sitting down to read the notes, it probably took me 3 or 4 goes to get through it, and I was up and doing other things, and what's wrong with me? What's wrong with this?
So I think it's one of those arguments that he makes that kind of can resonate with everybody. It resonates with people easily. This lady was like, yeah, I was trying to read my briefing notes this morning, the anchor, but I couldn't. I mean, I don't even know what she says. If she's saying that she didn't understand or she couldn't focus, I don't know which one it is. But
No,
yeah, I think he's smart in the thing. And of course, the hate on social media is the other part of his grifting, which, you know, he claims it's not all about that. But, you know, he's smart.
He's like Jordan Peterson of the left in many ways. I feel very much parallels. I would say, you point out, why is this type of thing always has customers? Why does this type of thing has always a big market for it? Because I think humans have a tendency to want to feel they live in, besides the fact that they want to feel as special, let's put that aside, they want to feel they live in exceptional times. It's always like the worst. Oh my God, it's the worst. It's the worst. Or, oh my God, this is the best, most innovative time, most blood time. And you see that all throughout history, and I think it's the same mindset that attracts people towards end of time cults and that type of things. And as you correctly point out, right now, if you're a slightly middle class liberal, it's so chic and in vogue to criticize social media, and oh my God, it's so fleeting, it's so fast, as if everybody was reading Google and Nabokov before the advent of Facebook.
Plato's Republic, people
Plato's
go
Republic
to dinner
was
parties. Him and his friends, right? Because his other thing that he connects this is very anecdotal. He's like, my friend and I have been talking, and we can't focus anymore, it seems. And just like that person points out,
we used to read Pliny the Elder every week. Now we can only read tweets. Oh my God. But I think he's a dishonest actor completely. But that's why I think he's sort of grift has customers, has a market, it's really truly disgusting. But now I just wanted to go to the more scientific article by Dr. Matthew Sweet. It's by the way, it starts with a thing that I think this was an addendum or an update on the story. So let's just start with that. Well, it's a tweet. I was booked to go on BBC Radio 4 PM to challenge at Johann Hari 101 about assertions made in his book. He has pulled out for personal reasons. So I'll just leave a thread about my concern about his use of sources. I hope someone else will raise these questions with him. It was great.
Can you hold on for a second? You thought that you're fed up with this guy. This guy was so pissed off that he couldn't argue with him face to face. He's like, okay, I'm going to do something with this. I'm going to write a blog. I don't give a shit. I'm making my thoughts known.
Motherfucker, this is asymmetric warfare at this point.
I'm going to come spray this shit on your house or like on a billboard. I'm not going to let you go. He's
lecturing, and there's this guy that no, you need to stop. You need to stop.
He's just...
But I mean, this guy is a doctor, so I completely understand. And this guy's article was good in a way that because it had extracts from the book. So
and he actually read the book, unlike us.
Although I couldn't get it for free, so and I'm not gonna spend my 1 month Audible credit on.
And we read his huge ass long Guardian article. So if you really had facts and stuff to back it up, he could have included it in that Guardian article, which we read and dissected before. So.
Oh yeah. All right. Let's start with this one. I'm just gonna read the first paragraph and then I'm gonna fast forward through.
Yeah.
So a stolen focus's book is full of stats, full of references to scientific research. Can its author be trusted to handle this research, not to cherry pick to help his case? I'll let you judge. And then he starts looking at it at case by case examples. For example, he looks at a Carnegie Mellon study, in which they studied 126 students, Johann Hari writes that the ones that were allowed to have their phones on and were receiving text messages, they performed 20-30% less than others in tasks, in whatever tests. And we as a species are losing our ability to use our brain power. And this is, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Fill in the gaps. But this guy, the doctor, writes, a Carnegie Mellon study sounds neuroscience, sounds conclusive. We imagine students distracted by their texts and alerts and losing test marks. And then this is that. Everyone who uses a smartphone is reducing their powers of concentration by 20-30%. Terrifying. Hari doesn't give you a source for this experiment. There is no footnote to follow, so it's hard for the reader to check his working. But here it is. The experiment was commissioned by the authors of a business self-help book called The Plateau Effect. So it's not peer-reviewed. The distracting messages mentioned were sent by the experimenters, and the subjects were told they contained important information about the test. They had to respond. So it tells you very little, nothing, I would suggest, about the ordinary seduction of the smartphone. So I love his passive aggressiveness and condescension, which is completely justified, is awesome. I must say, this article was a joy to read.
Yeah, I know. This one is great. Yeah. But make sure to also read one or two of those tweets by like the scientists that he had used and like referred to. I think they're included in the article.
We are getting there. Yeah. Oh, we are getting. Does Johann Hari tells us this? No. Instead, he says this research suggests that our species, yes, our species is losing 20-30% of its brain power because it uses mobile phones. Is this a reasonable assertion? I would say no. I would call it cherry picking and exaggeration. I also, this scientist points out that the fact that our collective attention span is shrinking, the idea has been a part of culture conversation for years, but an average attention span isn't taken seriously by very many academics. As you said, it is almost impossible to measure it. You see, and how do you measure the ones in the past? Even
I mean, that one, I think he has a line for it. He has like a sentence or paragraph. I should have highlighted myself, where he says like it's not even possible to carry out those kind of studies in any case. But
he goes on to write that it was written up in the name. Oh no, I don't have that.
No, it's fine. Anyway, continue. I'll get that. Don't worry about it.
So, just one more thing. For another study, for example, he mentions was written up in the Journal of Nature Communications. The phenomena that the author, Johann Hari talks about, the author of the article he has cited concedes lacks a strong empirical foundation. But does Johann Hari quote that? No. The paper is here, and you can take a look at it from the article. So I love the fact that even in his book, this recent book, he's reverted back to his older style.
Yeah. I found the sentence I wanted to read. It was, it's about Stuart Ritchie, so that's why you couldn't find it. Sorry, it was in the other one.
Oh, okay.
And Johann Hari, his name?
Johann Hari, I think.
Yeah, so he actually points it out himself, right? Because the author goes, but that's all anecdotal, because Johann keeps on going around and saying, me and my friends, we talk and we all lost our stuff and all that. Hari, so it's not until more than halfway through the book, page 176, that Hari drops what should be a bombshell. We don't have any long-term studies tracking changes in people's ability to focus over time. In other words, he quietly admits that there isn't really any strong scientific evidence for the main thesis of the book. I think that one sums it up like the best.
Perfect.
But yeah.
And just the last line from the scientist, Mr. What was it, Matthew something article? This is the last paragraph. One last thing. Johanna is vexed that Facebook doesn't allow you to find out if any of your friends are
he mentioned it
Some
as well.
Good news for him. It does. No, I love it. It doesn't really mention. It's just it does. And then, do you want to read the tweets? But I mean, they're fantastic.
I can just mention, one or two of them. Sorry, just put the article away again now. But
no.
I have
so Philip Lorenz Spreen, one of the scientists cited by Johann Hari, has tweeted, obviously, I'm not happy with the misrepresentation of our results in this way. I keep emphasizing that these findings it should be are, not at all about your ability to focus, but about the growing complexity of public discourse, in parentheses, which I hope to do and see more research in the on in the future. So this is just great that immediately the scientists that he has cited are coming out against him. This is just a whole new level of interaction with the scientific community.
You know,
Wouldn't you agree?
This shows also linking it to the previous fact checking and blah, blah, blah with Joe Rogan. You know, this book, I'm assuming the publishers quote unquote fact checked it, right? Including his previous book where he, you know, said that Facebook doesn't have any feature that can, you know, show you where your friends are. So, you know, this also shows some of the limitations of quote unquote fact checking that they want to be done to Joe Rogan. Sorry for that little tangent argument, but I thought it was a perfect example.
I completely agree. Yeah, it shows how easily you can manipulate data, and that's if you studied social sciences, that's majority of the topics, and you know that. And sorry, by the way, that wasn't the last paragraph from the article. He goes on to talk about this guy is actually much nicer than the other article. He only mentions his past problems later in the article and points out a couple of other cases in which he completely manipulates scientific studies by others. So yeah, I mean, judge for yourself, but at least I hope you try to read the free stuff before you spend your money or your time on his books and his things, because he's not even that important a guy. He's just a grifter that has found if I complain about social media to these rich middle class, basically increasingly we all becoming Victorian housewives with hysteria and neurosis, I can get a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's like smart with the topic that he picked and like the way he addresses it, and everybody can relate to it coming, you know, from their own side. And of course there is some truth to it. You know, in his Guardian article, he talks about, I don't know if he just made that up himself or he found a study. He's like, you know, if you're like doing on your work and if you're doing your work and you get an email on your phone, it's not just the 10 seconds or 15 seconds that you lose from looking at that. Your brain switched from one activity to another, and it needs to, you know, recuperate, you know, or like get back in the zone when you're going back to your work. So that's the thing. There's some truth to it. Of course, if you're getting messages and stuff, you're going to get distracted, but it doesn't support, like I said, the whole narrative that he puts and the historical lens that he kind of adopts.
Again, it's kind of like going back to our main theme of like the guy on the Bad Faith podcast who I found fantastic was talking about, like, just first of all, humans, I don't know who like majority of us are not amazing creatures that are going to come up with great poetry, with great analysis and all that. I mean, some of us are, and good for them, but majority of us are just human beings. And this, again, I talked about this when we discussed this article. I used to live in half of my time was spent in a rural area, disconnected from internet. But then when, you know, I was in town, in city, we had mobile phones and all our generation when we were like 10, maybe 12. So I've experienced both worlds in a very parallel shape and all that. And yeah, but majority of people like were bored out of their mind, just going around trying to find someone to talk to or somebody to, you know, spend time with. This idea that people used to again read Anna Karenina in their spare time, or be looking at fucking Vanity Fair, the book, not the fucking magazine, or Barry Lyndon, whatever. I don't know. Like, what do you think was going on back in the days? Like, most people were just fucking around. They weren't, you know.
I mean, just like now, it was a different. A different environment. There were different types of distractions. There were some exist now, some have gone, some have been accentuated. So, you know, just because there's like some differences, it doesn't mean you can add this whole narrative to it, which I feel like happens quite often with a lot of things.
I mean, another thing this guy has given me has been motivation to actually focus, just to prove this guy wrong. I've been, Audible is awesome. I've, since his shitty article, I've listened to Dead Souls by Google. I listened to Emma by Jane Austen. Now I'm listening to Pride and Prejudice because so fuck, like, okay, first of all, none of us are perfect, but yeah, if we put a little bit effort, maybe we can do better. Why are you trying to pathologize? And why?
Yeah.
Because of money, of course.
Yeah. We had some fun stories again. I think I've said everything I had to say. I don't know about you.
I'm looking. This is like my Whoopi Goldberg, because I'm like, any other angle I can criticize. Oh yes, man. One part, as you said, the whole thing about coming out of zone, going back in the zone, years passing. It says, as I get older and trying to focus, increasingly, I think he said it in the ABC interview, you increasingly feel like you're running up an escalator and it's becoming more and more difficult. Yes, you're getting older. You're getting older. Your brain power is going down. It's like, yeah, as I'm getting older, it feels like my back, there's more pain in my back. My knees are getting, yes, people get older and brain functions usually tend to deteriorate, especially 35 onwards. It's kind of like Matt Kreisman from Chapo Trap House writes that usually, like, you get a lot of social scientists that they get older, they keep writing about how life sucks and all that, and they are actually objective correct, because the suchness has increased for them because they got older. You idiot.
No, you were too nice with that. I don't even get that analogy. What does that have to do with the running up the
as
escalator?
You get older? No, because reading and concentration is a physical thing that you not necessarily, but usually most people, it deteriorates as they get older. I used to read far more. I used to be able, when I was a kid and all, to focus more. So that's part of the process of getting older. It has nothing to do with social media.
Yeah. But you can also get better at it. I mean, I read now more than I did as a kid, because before I wasn't too much into reading. Now I know what kind of books I like. But I kind of get it. But I hate that running up the escalator analogy that
I used to be extremely unhealthy as a teenager. I would eat unhealthily. I was super obese and all that. But then I changed my lifestyle. But it's still, though, as I get older, some parts of my body are, you know what I mean? That's like, old people find many things more difficult.
No, that is
not that he's that old. Anyway, he talks about back in the days, as if he back in the days in 1950s. What are you talking about? 90s? Like, oh my God.
No, we looked him up, right? He's just 10 years older. He's like early 40s.
Yeah, he's like 7 years older. It's like ridiculous guy.
But
so
anything else?
No, I feel burden has been lifted.
All right, Sam, let's move on to some progressive geopolitics. So what do you have for us this week? What's been going on around the globe?
Well, it's been a bit of a quiet, because we usually try to do headlines from different parts of the world, but there wasn't much going around. I mean, I'm sure there was. It didn't come across to my attention. That's all I'm saying.
Whoopi and Joe Rogan sucked the air. They dominated.
Dominated air times in my head. It was them and Johann Hari mostly. But there is apparently a little thing going on in Ukraine and Russia, I believe. So that evolved. It's interesting because it does seem that Europeans are taking a harsher stance. Germany seems to be moving towards, and Olaf Scholz is under constant attacks from the mainstream media that I can see, from DW, BBC, Guardian, constantly.
So that's the new German Prime Minister, Chancellor.
Chancellor, yes.
Who's technically from the Socialist Party and all that.
Yeah, and the Socialist Party of Germany has strong relations with Russia. Famously, Schröder, who's a former German chancellor from the Social Democratic Party, is one of the board members of Gazprom. Not the Russian Gazprom, I think another subsidiary, I think. Okay. So the relationships are tight, let's say. But they have now, it seems that they did say that if there is a invasion, quote unquote, there would be no Nord Stream 2 and all that. It seems that Americans kind of gave them an ultimatum. It seems they said basically, we won't let you. But at the same time, it does seem interesting in that, it's so funny. The Americans sent 3,000 troops to Ukraine, and it was so funny because there's 30,000 troops, Russians located only in Belarus, just waiting from the north, just like that. And I don't know what that 3,000 troops are gonna do, but it was more of a political action because I still don't think America or Europe are willing to shed blood for Donbass.
I mean, Europe clearly doesn't want to, except the UK, right? The UK seems to be playing a slightly different game.
UK has always traditionally been more. I mean, London. People talk about America and empire and all that. The real empire is not America or UK. The real empire is London, New York, LA, Moscow, Tokyo, and they are all aligned. So London has always had a very interesting, when it comes to both Israeli-Palestinian issue and Russia issue, they're very interesting. Sometimes they become more hardcore than the mainland. The mainland of the empire, whatever that is. But there also seems that Boris Johnson is trying to use it because of the pressure he's under. We're going to discuss later. He's trying to use that as a way to bolster his international standing and all that. But it seems like Ukraine is trying to play down the tensions for sure, because they know that they are going to be the ones that bear the most of the responsibility. So that's how that situation evolving. On the more fun side of events, you got Erdogan. As always, this guy, man. I mean, this guy, the balls this guy has. I mean, there is the famous video of him where his balls gets crushed by a horse or a cow.
Really?
I think it's a horse. Yeah, just gets. I don't know how he's still alive, Frank, but he keeps going to Ukraine and he keeps offering himself as the mediator between Ukraine and Russia is like, no, we don't want to, no, thank you, we don't need, we're going to talk with the US, it's a different level, all right? And then he's killing himself to establish a sort of international thing for himself. He's also under a lot of home pressure in terms of inflation and all that, so that could also be it. But there is a growing cooperation and relationship between Ukraine and Turkey. I mean, famously, Ukraine bought a lot of Turkish drones that have been used in attacks against the Russian-backed forces, and there are talks that there might be a free trade deal signed in Ukraine. I think it may have already been signed or something like that.
I see.
So yeah, that's the geopolitics of today.
Ukraine,
Ukraine. And the world.
Yeah. The guest who was on the gray zone, I guess, thankfully his deadline passed, because you remember there was this one guest who was quite nuanced and very good.
Douglas,
He's the former
General
Pentagon
Douglas,
advisor.
MacGregor, I think.
Yeah, with Aaron Mate, and he was saying that of course the Russians aren't going to attack all of Ukraine, but there's a chance that they'd want to take.
His deadline hasn't passed.
No, didn't he say end of
He said
January?
end of January, early February, and we are 4th of February. So I would give him until the 10th.
He was a bit specific, but he was just saying that they're going to come into eastern Ukraine, and
I don't think
the other side of the river.
The thing is, I think that's what his argument was. I don't think Russia will ever need to directly come in. I think they will bolster up their force. Like there are enough Russians in those areas that they just need to provide maybe arms or air support against drones and that type of thing. I think that would be the most likely scenario, I think. And I think that guy meant it that way too.
Yeah.
I don't think even Russia doesn't want to, lose too many people over Donbass.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he was just saying on the east of it and all this, but yeah.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, that was like geopolitically. On a more, I was just surprised by this. So I just started Googling coup and Africa, and it did turn out that I was onto something. There seems to be this wave of military coups going on in Africa. So I came across this article I thought I'd highlight. ECOWAS holds emergency summit after coups in West Africa. So this is some sort of a West African institution that tries to usually promote, I assume, I don't know specifically, but I figure it's similar to, all these EU wannabe sort of institutions. They promote free trade and cooperation and other stuff among the nations. West African bloc expected to decide whether to impose more sanctions on Burkina Faso following a military coup. West African leaders are holding an emergency summit in Ghanaian capital Accra in response to recent spats of coups in the region. The talks on Thursday were initiated after Burkina Faso on January 24th became the third member of the 15-nation economic community of West African states to be overtaken by the military. So we got Burkina Faso, we got Mali, we got Guinea, and we also, of course, there is all these stuff that was going on beforehand in Somalia, this civil war in Ethiopia. So it is surprising to me, and I would wonder if there is an overarching cause for this. Is there? I heard Mali had huge problems with population and immigration and all that. So I would be interested. I couldn't find much, but that seems to be Africa is going crazy.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Well, I mean, I think like the Ethiopia one and the Somalia one, neither are they related to each other, nor are they particularly related to the West African one. But the West African ones, these countries, I can see how they can be totally related because there's a lot of counterterrorism going on and preventing people from migrating and all these operations going on in West Africa that kind of ties all these countries together, fighting against the same kind of terrorism groups. The French being in Mali and now being kind of kicked out. The Russians trying to be involved a bit. Yeah, the Danish, the 100 Danish who have found themselves in Mali. So I think there is some kind of connection between probably what's going on in the different West African countries. But unfortunately, I haven't looked into it too much. And on our shows, we don't look into it too much because anytime we do something on like Africa, I feel like they get negative views. I don't even know like how it works. Like you put Africa segments like minus 10 views. I'm like, how? The
great and powerful algorithm doesn't really like it when you cover it, like African. I mean, to be fair though, it's not like, I mean, it's not like we are that clickbaity. I hope. So we continue to cover it whenever I guess we just come across
for sure. But I mean, I think any African stories that we've done, any stories on any countries in Africa have probably got the worst like traction possible on our channel, because we can do similar stories about other countries like Central Asian countries and they do like, you know, whatever. But stories on Africa, it seems like, you know, it just really doesn't get picked up. Yeah. But it's interesting, and there's a lot of different things happening, and there's always and there are connections, and it's not covered in the news that much by any kind of outlet. Maybe a bit more by the Europeans. Yeah, Al Jazeera and the Europeans. But in the US, I don't even think they have like, you know, the packaging needed for like introducing an Africa segment. So I was like, okay, guys. change the news here. Guys, sorry, we don't have that.
I can't do this. You just see Jake Tapper running out of the I can't do this anymore.
They just don't. They're not even ready for it. So.
Yeah, good point.
Except Ethiopia, I guess that one kind of made it into it. But you're right. Al Jazeera is the home of all these kind of.
Yeah, TRT sometimes, but yeah, Al Jazeera is the only one that. Yeah, we got this guy from Guinea, this guy from Mali. How do you find like? Well done, you're butchering like it's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, they saw. I think, you know, they saw a gap in the market, which is, you know, just like what I'm saying, that they rarely cover African, you know, African related
geographically, there are loads of African people that go work in Qatar, Dubai, so there is connections there.
No, definitely. Okay, nice. Anything else on geopolitics?
No, it's very, this week, as you said, Whoopi and Johann Hari and all that, wasn't much time for geopolitics.
But, I mean, so let's segue to quick hitters and The Rising. And before we do our first story, The Rising, I think, had like 2 Joe Rogan stories per day, like easily.
Yeah. It's like they should have basically a Joe Rogan sort of, it's like a everyday segment. So what is Joe Rogan up to today, or what is his enemies are saying? It's become, and it's. I hope it might not, but I hope it works in his benefit in terms of viewership and all that.
Yeah, no, definitely. But okay, let's do our first quick hitter story about which is on The Hill and The Rising. So they they pretty much had this segment which talked about animal and human testing. What brought it up? What's the specific story that brought up this conversation?
There was report that there was a study done by a governmental, I think, testing institution, a medical institution, that used dogs, small puppies, specifically to experiment on giving them cocaine. And
beagles. And, there we go. Yeah, they were giving beagles cocaine.
Yeah, beagles cocaine, but the tests weren't really that necessarily because it was just a sort of a check the box type of thing and all that. And I had two. I have two very specific issues I want to discuss about this story. But please go ahead. What did you think of it?
No, I think that's a good way to get the conversation going. I think that's a good way. You pointing out your points and then I'll react.
I would say I am completely against animal testing in general. Because from what I understand, it's mostly useless anyway, unless, of course, in some cases it's justified if there is no other way to research that medical issue. But I would say, I thought, frankly, I mean, as far as animal testing goes, these dogs had it great. Cocaine, free cocaine. The prostitutes were brought in to have fun. They were having Hollywood ideas. Yeah, man, it's gonna be great. We're gonna make a movie, and guess what? All the bad guys are gonna be cats, and it's gonna be fucking us. Like, it sounded like. I mean, usually animal testing is they give them disease. This was like they were having, like, yeah, they had an opium expert. They were, they would. This is great. So as far as animal testing goes, yeah, I was like, good for the beagles. Like they hit the jackpot as far as that sort of thing goes. Yeah. I don't know, what was your view on that?
I didn't think that. I still felt bad for them, regardless of what kind of type it is. And yeah, when I come down with animal testing, where I come down and don't spend all my time thinking about this, but even though I'm a dog owner and even though I'm a vegan and try to purchase vegan products as much as possible, where do my best, so to speak, I'm not fully against. So we're gonna move on to human testing after, but animal testing, I mean, kind of like what you said, I guess if it's really necessary, which I feel like most of the time it's not, and beauty products and all them, they can go fuck themselves. They can just work on whatever knowledge is there. If there's something else they need to figure out, forget about it. But yeah, when it comes to medical, perhaps animal testing is necessary at times, and it can be done. So that's where I fall on the animal testing, although I hope that it's done as little as possible. But if there's a reason, and it can help into some kind of breakthrough, which will of course then help humans at the expense of these animals, even in that case I'll be like, sure, if it's really helpful like that. I mean, I guess sometimes you have to do some kind of horrible stuff, perhaps.
I think cosmetic testing and all that is complete, of course, BS. Yeah, exactly. It should only be done when there is clear reason that, okay, we're going to learn more about this fatal disease because we do that testing, and hopefully we're going to save humans or whatever. But as somebody, I would say, as somebody who's post-human in his philosophy, as in I don't necessarily think it's humanist view of the word that humans are these special little creatures, I do say human experimentation is more fine with me because they can consent.
Well, let's get to the human. I'll get to the human part in a second. But before that, sure. I mean, let's just get to the.
Before that, what? Sorry, did I not miss your? No. I mean, I thought we agree on the.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with the. Yeah, I guess the animal one. If it needs to be done, it needs to be done. But I guess the human part, I just wanted to say that, of course, objectively, I think humans aren't above any kind of other animal, but humans for themselves can decide that, hey, we value humans more. And as a dog owner and as a vegan, I'm just bringing this again just to show the context a bit. I could see. I mean, I don't necessarily oppose if it's really needed for an animal to be sacrificed if it will save the life of a human. So I guess in that sense, I do put the life of humans at a higher value, although if it's completely subjective and it comes from, you know,
Good
from a
points.
human. I'm not saying it's
From a-
objective. It's not objectively the case, but I think
I
that's
mean-
where I kind of land on the animal one.
That's a good point. No, that's even okay. Fair enough. You could even take the
But on the
post-humanist argument
human
further.
testing, even this is where I disagree, I think, with you and Robbie Suave again.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I don't think that, you know, human testing should be 100% banned, right? Perhaps in some points it really is necessary and stuff. However, the argument that simply because you got the consent of someone, that's a great first step, right? Consent is a great first step. But simply because you got the consent of someone does not make that, you know, okay and that it should be done. And, you know, what does okay mean?
Look.
Okay can mean something differently for anyone, but for like me or for like the body of like scientific ethics, that okay is a certain study to go on or stuff, simply because you managed to get consent from someone. And, you know, of course, there's some situations where you can get consent much more easily for some people. That doesn't make it fully 100% okay in all cases, that you just turn around and tell me, hey, he gave me his consent, so I did X, Y, and Z to him.
Look, there is one thing. First of all, I'd like to clarify. By the way, I loved it on the Hill when Robbie Suave was like, oh, well, humans, why they don't do it on humans? And then Ryan Grimm just went, what? Like, you're advocating a future hellscape? So I like to clarify, first of all, that we basically we were talking on the phone, and this was one of those bullshit arguments we have, because it's never gonna, like, in reality, I land with you, you know, in like, I think it should be banned and all that. But let's say we live in this utopia where there is a free healthcare, free education, free housing, free minimum level of food, and sort of a basic income, right? In that world where people can't be financially pursued because they are deprived unfairly, in that world, I think consent is everything. So in that world, I would say consent is enough.
I mean, first, you specified this well enough, but you said in this utopian world, which doesn't exist and which will, you know, most likely never exist.
Never exist.
In that sense, is still simply consent enough, you know, but someone might still not fully kind of understand what they're consenting, and there could still be other pressures on that. So, you know, I guess I don't give now that I think about it these days, I guess I don't give human agency that much value, because there's like a few stories where I've thought this and I've landed there. So even if the person wants it themselves and they consented, it still might not be enough, even in that utopian setting you said that you put out.
I think humans are miserable little creatures who are not really intelligent and stuff, but I think it's a slippery slope. I think consent should be for people who at least are not mentally challenged or anything. Consent is all we have. Consent and being adults. So I don't know. I think it could be a very slippery slope if we say consent is not enough. But then again, though, I'm talking about the utopian situation, which never happens, and I completely agree, because I know of countries that allow, for example, humans to sell their body parts. And it is a hellscape. Like, it is as close as to a dystopia. Like, you see people advertising their kidneys. It's this again, I don't mind it if somebody likes to advertise their kidneys, but most of these people are clearly doing it because they're financially deprived heavily, you know, to the point of selling their bodies. Like, even one step further than prostitution, I would say.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think we kind of almost land on the same thing, although you give a lot more value to someone giving consent. But yeah, Robbie Suave it live there with.
It was so funny, right? What? Why don't you? Yeah, because I mean, I like Robbie Suave, but libertarian arguments in practice, I think, are generally very hellscapey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. But what a team they put together though at the Hill.
Fantastic.
I mean, there's someone for everyone. You know, you want someone super lefty, extreme lefty. You got Kim. You want someone a little bit more balanced. Now you have balanced Ryan Grimm and Briahna to back him up. And then, of course, towards the right, they don't really have a conservative. They have a libertarian kind of. Yeah.
Again, I don't know how they found him, because he seems like the most like reasonable right-wing person. Almost he doesn't seem right-wing sometimes.
Yeah, but I mean, you can hear with some of his points. But it would be nice if like, or maybe they do it. I don't watch The Rising that much. But if they got more into his libertarian like views and stuff, and just expose them to some of the normal anti-libertarian arguments that you hear, and I would be curious in what he says.
Like after I found out about him on the Hill, he did a great interview with the Chapo Trap House guys.
Oh, really?
On
Chapo Trap? No way.
Yeah, it's from years ago. I'll send it to you. It's good. It's really good. He's very. I would say I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough, but I would say he doesn't really have a deep political ideology. He's much more about meat and grind of everyday politics than sort of necessarily having a libertarian critique or Marx, whatever, like a grand critique or something,
Yeah, it seems like the case. But yeah, good channel these days, I must say. And every time I say this, but boy, do the viewers love Kim. I mean, Jesus Christ. And they all shit on Ryan Grimm nonstop. And also Robbie Suave, yeah.
Why?
Robbie Suave also, he's not, I mean, I read the comment sections in the Rising, and he doesn't get much love at all.
Like, is it mostly about, what is it, like their ideas?
Ryan Grimm, the usual stuff, the usual criticisms that you hear about him, kind of. And or just saying that he makes no sense, blah blah blah, and just Kim saying that she's amazing and truth spreader and all of that.
Interesting. I had no idea.
But yeah, check it out.
You told me about it, but I had no idea.
Check it out next time when she's on. I mean, one after the other. I mean, really. Let's continue, Sam. I was gonna say that our next story is again on the Hill, but this time I didn't get to watch the clip. I forgot. So it's about China Fight Club. You wrote.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Have you seen?
No. I've seen Fight Club a bunch of times.
Oh, thank God.
I don't love it as much as. I mean, no, I do really. No, it is really great. It is really, really good. Yeah,
it's awesome.
For sure. Yeah.
There are quite a few movies that capture their time very well, and I would say like it was the quintessential 90s movie. Like it captured that feeling of like everything is okay, but there is that feeling of dread, like you have comfort, but there is that it's not supposed to be like that, but I would say it's not my favorite David Fincher movie by far.
What do you like by him? Do I know any of them?
I think so, man. Seven.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I like I think Fight Club, I like it more than Seven.
Really? I prefer Seven. And Gone Girl is probably my favorite of his. It's the one with the Rosamund Pike and Ben Affleck.
Oh yeah, it's Ben Affleck. I thought that was a Ben Affleck movie.
No, he acted.
He just plays in it, didn't direct it. Okay, yeah, that one's good.
I love Gone Girl, and even to be honest, David Fincher directed Alien 3, which is considered to be one of the worst movies, and he disowned it because of a studio interference and all that. I genuinely think it's Alien 4, if I'm not mistaken. But I genuinely think it was one of the I really don't like Aliens, which everybody loves. I really don't like Aliens. I genuinely don't like James Cameron at all. So anyways, that was just on a tangent. But China has apparently changed the ending because spoiler alert, if anyone. You remember the ending for Fight Club?
And the ending, everything explodes, right? And they're just watching it.
Yeah, they are basically this sort of a extremist group that is planning to basically blow up the whole world, like major power centers, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, they succeed. In the Chinese version, they cut off before the bombing, the towers start falling off, and it cuts to a sort of what was it called? The writing, sort of a scroll thingy that says that, and the police managed to successfully capture all criminals, and the great and powerful and the just judicial system, all what the hell? Which, by the way, which is so weird because like first time I watched Fight Club was actually on Persian television, because Iranian government, even though they don't usually are not good with Hollywood and sexual scenes and all that, they were completely happy with Fight Club because it's a critique of modern America and all that. So I don't understand why the Chinese have done this anyway, because it's not a reflection on them. But it's so funny that yes, every bad guy was captured. Do not believe this like cynical approach to life. The just judicial system has acted again.
This is a movie, by the way.
Do not take it
disclaimer.
Yeah. Renew your membership for the Communist Party now.
And I'm guessing, did they mention The Hill if they're rerunning this in the cinemas or stuff, or if you buy like the DVD version or something?
I was just thinking of that. I was just thinking that what was it? Was it in cinema or was it on a streaming services? I forget. I watched a video about a week ago. So it
do
just
they have their
out.
Own streaming service?
Oh, I'm sure
they
yes,
do.
Of course. They have their own Google, which is relatively popular.
Yeah, and all the social media ones and all that.
Oh yeah. Vimeo, whatever. Yeah. They are. It's really fascinating, man. I worked in, online businesses and all that, like for a couple of years. Mostly, it was like marketplaces and fintech, financial tech. China, Iran, all these countries are on a whole different level, man. It's almost like in these things, Europe and America are like third world. Like people are still text messaging, while in Iran they're like you have apps that are just like WhatsApp, and you can transfer money with them. You can do in China, everywhere you go, you can pay with your mobile phone, like a credit card type of thing. It's just fascinating. The stuff that is going on in financial tech and all that is fast. I mean, by the way, I don't think any of it is good or bad. It's always capitalism, but it's fascinating as an observer.
Definitely, and this just reminded me of something quick, and I didn't follow up and read through this properly. But you know that now there are 5G networks in a lot of countries, right? And the airports and airplanes apparently are running smoothly. But in the US, did you read those stories from like a week or two ago where they couldn't really go ahead with the launch of 5G networks because there was interfering with airports and like the towers for the airplanes and stuff and the signals, so they had to push it back and stuff. Just your comment on technology that reminded me of that. So apparently they're having issues, although like 40 countries have implemented 5G and airports and airlines and everything. Everything is running. Fantastic. But in the US, it's weird. Apparently, they had that issue. Maybe someone who knows more. I didn't follow up on the story.
It's fascinating you say that. There was somebody who was an expert on all these like tech stuff, and I was having a meeting with them once, and this was on tangent, but he said that the 5G is not so much about like internet speed and all that. Already 4G is more than enough. It's mostly about the Internet of Things and systems of control, as in like, as you mentioned, like airport and stuff like. So maybe with implementation they have to do a lot of changes because with 5G apparently it allows them to basically do like a lot of more actions as an automated and as an algorithmic based sort of thing. So I wonder if it had to do with that. But it's a fascinating topic. I don't know how we get there from Fight Club to this, but
you said China and technology and all that. So but let's keep on moving. And actually, I want to ask you a favor for this next story. So next one's on Boris Johnson, and based on like I don't like favor. Is it financial? You're cutting off Kam here. There is internet connection is you were just bragging about 5G and now you don't. No, it's just that I realized under a last video which we posted, which was about Boris Johnson, a few people commented that like how this story hasn't been covered very well outside of the UK or in the US. So maybe just summarize in 1 minute too. And I really think you can summarize in 1 minute what the Boris Johnson scandal is, and then move on to whatever update you want to share. Yeah, actually, it's very if anybody is like in the US, it's very much similar to the Gavin Newsom situation in California right now. Basically, there were certain significantly heavy lockdown policies, some would argue. In the very beginning.
in the very beginning in
First
the
year,
UK.
2020, yeah.
So, for example, you couldn't have gatherings of more than 5 or 6 people, if I'm not mistaken. You weren't allowed to have parties. You weren't allowed to blah, 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 blah. And as these sort of lockdowns were put in place and people, especially, for example, the students, were fined over them, you had the conservative governments basically were having parties every day in their offices. People were smuggling alcohol from the co-op, and it had like they were having the life, like it was the time of their life basically. So, and Boris Johnson, like it has actually, I was very dismissive of, if you recall, I was somewhat dismissive and said, I don't, compared to the scandals that Boris has had, this is nothing.
I said that.
You too, yeah, you agreed.
100%.
Yeah. But it seems that so far, in terms of actual damage, this one has been crazy. So, the Guardian, all the usual suspects they're having an article against him every day. The Ukrainian thing, a lot of people say he traveled to Ukraine a couple of days ago. He seems to focus on that as a distraction.
Yeah.
He started smearing Keir Starmer, somebody who we have expressed undying love for a number of times on this channel. But he is Keir Starmer, who we hate, by the way, Anyway, before I get to that, I just want to say, they were having parties and they were breaking the rules that they had made themselves. Then the Prime Minister commissioned a report by Sue Gray, who's responsible to looking into if ministers have broken ministerial code. She's released a report, and her report basically was the most polite version of they broke the rules. She said most of the activities could not be justified under the then ruling regime.
Yeah.
And now there are even talks that police looked into it. Police, by the way, themselves came under huge questions because the chief of police intervened to have the report blocked because they said it might interfere with the investigation. It was an awful case of corruption, it seemed. And but under political pressure, the report was released, and now apparently there are talks of potential vote of no confidence, which is the equivalent of an impeachment. So, and the backbencher Tories are basically losing it. So, it seems it's a weird one.
Yeah, and I guess he kind of like denied it a few times, right? Like it was gradual. Like first he denied, he was like, "No, I wasn't at the party." Then he was like, "Fine, I kind of was at the party."
It was
so there were like a few steps.
It was, and it still is constant doublespeak. As in, there was individuals meeting, but I can't as of yet describe it as a gathering or a party. I will await the result of a police investigation. And that's another thing. Like there is, if because now police must have looked into it. And right now there is this whole thing that he's saying that they're not going to disclose whether the prime minister got fined or not, because if you did break the rules, you must get fined. So if he doesn't get fined, it's a corruption case.
Yeah.
If he does get fined, it's a definite proof that he broke the rules. So that's why they're saying we are not going to say either way. We are not going to disclose it. But then Tories, as it is very typical with Tories, have gone on the offensive. And I don't know if you remember the Jimmy Savile case.
No.
Jimmy Savile was this disgusting human being of it's a shame to categorize him as a human being. He was a DJ in the UK. He had this program which was like make the Wish Foundation type thing. That
is this an older guy?
Older guy, discuss glasses.
I know the story now. Yeah.
And then it turned out that he would use his connections in the BBC whenever he was in contact with children, and he was a pedophile.
Them. No?
Yeah, exactly. He was a pedophile who abused children, including children in hospitals, including children in orphanages. So a disgusting piece of shit.
And he was very much liked back in the day and everything. Like,
and BBC. There was even there are indications that BBC may have newer stuff, but they didn't follow up. Blah blah. It's a disgusting affair. At the time where there were reports about him or there were allegations about him, Keir Starmer was prosecutor general. Everybody who I've like everybody who's looked into the thing, they say that even though he was prosecutor general, it's kind of like saying that, you know what I mean? It's like now Boris Johnson is trying to say it was his fault that Jimmy Savile wasn't prosecuted, even though Jimmy Savile had extensive relationship with Conservative Party, and even though most of pedophiles in UK turn out to be Conservative Party members, it's been a very common theme. It is a smear campaign, really. You might disagree. I haven't looked into the details, but everybody who has says that it seems to be a smear campaign.
Towards Keir Starmer.
Towards Keir Starmer. But you must say there is a somewhat poetic justice to it, because now you have all these centrists and leftists like James O'Brien, who had a radio show on LBC, London Broadcasting station, if I'm not mistaken, who is the most condescending, who is and was the most condescending piece of shit out there. Like, he was one of those guys who are, I am very critical of terrorists, but I'm also very critical of Jeremy Corbyn. If you don't think he's a fascist, maybe something is wrong with you. If you don't think he's anti-Semitic, there is something wrong with you. So, and now they're all like, oh my God, how dare they smear Keir Starmer as a somebody who didn't do enough to fight pedophiles. I don't know, but yeah. So there is a little bit of joy I am getting from this. That, you know, oh my God, the right-wing newspapers are going with Prime Minister's characterization. Yeah, just like how you went with Jeremy Corbyn's characterizations by the same right-wing newspapers.
Yeah.
How you called him a terrorist, how you put his face on Voldemort's face and made videos about it. So there is a bit of I must say, I'm getting some joy from that. But it's not right, and it is fascinating. It's like Boris Johnson has become the Don Quixote of politics, I feel. It's like every week his adventures continue, his bumbling adventures.
But
maybe
man,
not Don Quixote, or maybe more Norman Wisdom.
But I mean, I still do think that, you know, sure, he was a hypocrite, right? His government came up with all these lockdown laws and stuff, and they didn't follow them.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, on the scale of bad things that the prime
selling
minister,
weapons
the
to
former
Saudi
mayor of London can do are much more than this. But it's just funny how these things bring you down, you know, how something like this can be what, you know, it brings you down. And I kind of made the parallel last time with Trump and Ukraine. You know, Trump has perhaps a million things you can attack him, but unsuccessful in their case, though. They chose the Ukraine one, the Democrats, because of course everything else that could be turned back to them. This was one where they found an angle kind of where they were a bit shielded, but not even that much. So it's just so sad in a way, though, that, you know, it comes down, if he is taken down, you know, I don't care for him particularly, but it's about something that is, okay, he was a hypocrite, grow up. There are worse things. If this is the barrier, if this is like, you know,
I definitely
the
agree,
level.
yeah. I mean, Boris Johnson, like his case is, in my view, is very parallel to the governors of the US. I just mentioned Gavin Newsom in California, but Cuomo, you know, Cuomo is, in my view, responsible for killing of number of older people with his policy towards housings, and then lying about the statistics and all of that, putting older people back into like nursing homes and that type of thing. And he didn't go down for that. He went down for his disgusting sexual behavior. So it is, yeah, one I would say is worse than the other. But yeah, you're right. It seems that sadly one is more attractive, both in terms of media and being juicy and gossipy. Yeah. And as you said, I think the crucial point is that in some issues they can come to, like, in some issues they can't criticize because it quickly turns back on them.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like he lied about, you know, the UK's role in Afghanistan or anything else.
But he has done all of those.
Yeah, he has done all of those, right? Yeah. So it comes down to this like half-ass party and stuff. It's just such a joke.
It is. And that's the thing. It's kind of about hyper-normalization that Adam Curtis talks about. You do feel like you're living in a, like, media is having its own reality with the state, because I think most people knew, like, who was thinking Boris Johnson, the man who still is unclear
I mean, you know,
if he had 27 children or
you
35.
sometimes say, oh, X, Y, or Z is like, you know, if you're that gullible, it's your fault. And I sometimes counter you and I'm like, no, you're being harsh. But exactly, in this case, if you thought that the prime minister was following the lockdown rules, not that it's good that he's breaking them, but if you really thought that's the case, I mean, you can't be that gullible.
You shouldn't be allowed to vote, for sure. You shouldn't be allowed. If you think any politician without complete supervision follows any rules, you really are a child.
Not that it makes it okay, but you know, they're just such bigger fish to fry and attack when it comes to their behaviors that, you know, this is just like I mean, for me, it undermines, like, you know, the validity of all the criticism and all that when you make such a big deal out of this. But definitely not surprising. If I was surprised, then I'd be part of the gullible people from a different angle.
Or at least now stopping, like every day they are surprised. It's like, okay, you heard the news a week ago. Maybe your mentality should adjust to the realization that politicians may lie.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Anything else to mention with this Boris Johnson story?
No. There was the great fun. One of the funniest scene I had seen in a long time in the parliament with I think it was the SNP guy who was accusing Boris Johnson of lying. But according to ancient rules of the parliament, you are not allowed to call another member a intentional liar. So it led to some hilarious bits. But I find that I really like the new speaker. The old speaker, John Bercow, was this really, he always kept saying, order, order, order. But this new guy it's a bit more, I think he's from a more working class background, and he's got a very football referee vibe. And he's like, oh, hey man, I told you that this is not fair. Okay, I'm gonna give you another chance. One more chance to take back what you say. He's got a very football referee vibe. Yeah. His accent is more real. Order, order. Okay, I said order, guys. You know, chill the fuck out. And then one part, he just goes, somebody's talking, and he goes, just shut up, you. And it's just great. I love British Parliament. It's the best. It's the best.
I'll try to include that clip.
The Prime Minister has told the House that all guidance was completely followed. There was no party. COVID rules were followed, and that I believed it was a work event. Nobody believed him then, and nobody believes you now, Prime Minister. That is the crux. No ifs, no buts. He has willfully misled Parliament. It's bad enough.
Order! Inadvertent misled the House will be acceptable. Misled the House is not acceptable. Withdraw inadvertent.
The Prime Minister inadvertently told the House on the 8th of December that no parties had taken place and then had to admit that they had. Public know this is a man they can no longer trust. He has been investigated by the police. He misled the House. He must now resign.
Order. You'll have to withdraw that last comment.
Mr. Speaker, I gave the evidence of the 8th of December.
Order. You're going to have to withdraw misled.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has misled the House.
Unless you withdraw, I will have to stop, and that's not good. Just withdraw the words.
I am standing up for my constituents that know that this Prime Minister has lied and misled the House.
Give me the paper. Give me the paper. Inadvertently misled. I'll give you one more chance. As leader of the SNP, I don't want to have to throw you out. I'm going to give you this chance. Please.
Please to power. That man has misled the House.
Shut up. I'm sorry it's come to this, and I'm sorry that the leader of the party has not got the decency to just withdraw those words in order that this debate can be represented by all political leaders. Would you like to inadvertently?
If the Prime Minister has inadvertently misled the House, then I will state that.
Right, we're going to leave it at that. Can I just say, I take it the honourable member has withdrawn it, the right honourable member.
that the Prime Minister may have inadvertently misled the House.
But, order. To help the House, you withdrawn your earlier comment and replaced it with inadvertently.
It's not my fault if the Prime Minister can't be trusted to tell the truth.
Under the power given to me by Standing Order number 43, I order the honourable member to withdraw immediately from the House. From the House.
He's left anyway.
Rivera, it's all right, we don't need to bother. Right, let's just move on.
I'll try to That's fun. And it's funny you said so. There's an old law where you can't call someone, like tell them that you're a liar.
You can't call another. Apparently, I didn't know about this. I mean, and I consider myself very good at this type of shit. But yeah, apparently you can't. That's why it was so funny. The guy, a couple of times finally he did. Actually, finally he was like, okay, I add inadvertently. I inadvertently said. And then 5 minutes later, he was like, no, he is a goddamn liar. And then they kicked him out.
Right. I feel like Glenn Greenwald came up with that law because he hates it. If accuse him of lying or somebody else, he's so against that word. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
His brain?
Glenn Greenwald's like, yeah, back in the day before I became, before I worked in law and became, I used to write laws for the British Parliament. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's not surprising. To be fair, he might have done it as a part-time job when he was 15 while having a lemonade stand and also adopting stray cats to rescue. His level of productivity is not natural.
Man, yesterday I listened to him on Call-In. Actually, by the way, downloaded the app. Sorry, just for a segue. And Matt Taibbi had him on. And Glenn just said, hello.
Matt Taibbi has a call-in?
Yeah. And he invited Glenn. And then Glenn just went into the Joe Rogan thing, like 30 minutes, beautiful monologue.
It's such bullshit. Why don't they have call-in on Android?
Aaron Mate posts about this all the time. You can do it through the web browser on Android, apparently. But yeah, not the app. But apparently they're working on one. So I think you have to go on callin.com or whatever their website is if you're on Android.
I thought Briahna said you can only watch the show after it's done. Like a recording of it. You can't do a call-in.
Yeah.
I want to talk to Matt Taibbi.
He had like 15 people, man. There was like 15 people waiting to talk.
Of course.
Yeah. And there was Glenn Greenwald.
By the way, I would never do the because I never know what to like. I admire a lot of people, but that's why, by the way, we haven't invited a lot of people I admire for interviews, because it's like you invite them and go, okay, you talk, I listen. Like, what do you do? Like, it's like, okay, we agree. What's the point? Yeah. But I'm so disappointed.
But it's gonna happen.
I love Matt Taibbi so much.
And he had like 1,200 people listening to him live, and there was a bunch of people lined up. And Glenn was there. But
his books, his shows, everything he does is so good.
All right, Sam, let's move on to another story. And I mean, this one, we're just mentioning it for fun. But I mean, I listened to a little bit of it, but not even really, which was the Kyle Kalinske and Vaush debate. And the debate was on Ukraine, if I got it right. And
the greatest debate of our generation.
I'll just make my point right now quickly. I don't understand the urge of like people, of non-expert people debating on a topic. Talking about a topic is not an issue, right? Presenting it is all fine. But I feel like debating, you should just only really go and have a debate on the one or two subjects that, is really your focus and a lot. And I mean, Kyle, I'll tell you what, if Kyle goes out and debates about domestic US policies and, voting and all this I will say okay, I've seen you enough, focus in this area and stuff will be good. But foreign policy and Ukraine and Russia, I mean, know so little about it. I feel that what's the urge of having a debate? I guess maybe Vaush challenged him or told him, but we two non-experts on a topic debating a topic. I feel like that's pushing it. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. I think, of course, if you're doing a show like us, Kyle does all these stories that he presents. He's not expert in all of those, but you read the article and you show what you've read, we share with the audience. But a debate, I feel like a debate.
First of all,
pushing it. What's up with two people who really don't know too much about something debating it? It's next level. I feel.
even talking about it, man. Are adults learning? No, like they are not first. Yeah, exactly. I don't understand the point of two like uneducated, like they're not even, what is their anyway. But yeah, I watched like 5 seconds, and it was the Vaush guy who, yeah, man, his whole attire and everything, it just pisses me off that he's dressed like a hobo and but talks smoother. And he was saying dressed as a hobo, going, don't you think, Kyle, I feel some of your videos have come across as pushing the Russian view as, who cares anyway? Like, what is Kyle is brainwashing the people again? What are you talking about? Like, I don't. It was the whole thing was just I mean, it just shows how. Yeah, I mean.
But this debate culture, I really don't get it. Like, people debating in areas that even Kyle never even himself, I think I don't understand. Doesn't talk about foreign policy much and stuff. Go have a debate, have a conversation or something, but debate, I really feel like should be reserved.
No,
you should debate really on something that's your main focus and stuff. Okay, then you're like debate level. But
yeah, I would say even conversation, like don't talk about shit you don't know really, or don't have a strong views, and just have like, okay, whatever, I think that, but I don't know, rather than having in my view this type of policy justifies. What are you talking, what is this, fucking a State Department? Like, yeah, Kyle, your program with less than 1 million viewers, I feel like some of your way of you put things is a justification to normalize and manufacture consent. What are you
Kyle
talking
is so
about?
nice to this guy. I don't understand why Kyle feels like he needs to be friends with this guy.
Yeah,
because he was a douche to him. Then they invited him on the show, but like,
same with Crystal. He said some really fucked up. I would say he's a disgusting human being just because of the things he said about other people. Like, yeah, I don't get why Kyle keeps on like as if like you have to maintain a relation with this guy as if he's like Bernie Sanders or someone like very important or like meaningful. But yeah, this is really getting on my nerves. This, what is his audience level? Like less than 1 million, do you think, or more than 1 million?
I don't know. Just people debating for no reason. Like, I don't get it. I mean, go bring 2 experts on that and host a debate on your platform. You have some viewers. If that's what you want to do.
Yeah, get experts. That I definitely agree with. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the debate part. I really feel like people push it.
I go harsher. Yeah.
Let's keep this party moving. We just have a few stories left and then a best and worst pick of the week. So this, again, I didn't watch on Useful Idiots, unfortunately. This one really, I completely missed it. You shared it with me once, but Jordan Chariton, he came on and he spoke with Matt Taibbi and Katie Halper.
And to be fair, I have forgotten most of it. So, but he talked about the fact that he does reporting on the water crisis in America and the fact that there is lead found and other chemicals, and he basically updated on the fact that the problems are still there and there are all these ways that they find of getting around connecting the water levels to the health problems that people have. And basically, apparently Obama also, there's evidence that Obama like knew that nothing being is done to address the issues. But yeah, it definitely worth a shout out, because I think he's the only one who's actually out of, not only one, but out of a lot of people who claim to be journalists, he actually does reporting, on-field reporting. That's what I mean.
So the content was probably similar to what he discussed on Bad Faith with Brie a few days a week before.
Yeah, he's doing the rounds.
Yeah, no, it's great. Hopefully his channel and stuff get a bit of traction by going on Iron Man on. Speaking.
Oh yeah, and they discussed the YouTube sort of throttling of certain YouTube channels.
So that we've discussed a lot, I think.
I would say I do feel sometimes we are a victim of that. So subscribe, like, do, share, whatever.
Yeah, please do. I sometimes feel victim too, but then I look, I'm like, okay, all these other people are unsubscribed, and YouTube showed their stuff to them and they still didn't subscribe. So I don't know. Let's move on from this conversation. I think we've done it. I had it a few times, if you don't mind. And I think our last story before pick of the week is Nina Turner. I think you might have a few words you want to share about her?
So it's kind of because I don't think we have tweets this week, but we can start with tweets that I shared with you. She's okay. The headline is that she's running again for the same Senate seat, if I'm not mistaken, against
Senate,
Chantal.
right?
Yeah, Chantal Brown. So she's back on interviews, and this time around, though, unlike her last campaign, it seems she's going hardcore. And what was the tweet?
The one about cannabis, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So she tweeted, legalizing cannabis is not enough. Expunging records isn't enough. We also must make the cannabis industry equitable for the communities that have been torn apart by its criminalization.
Yeah. First of all, maybe maybe you should start walking before running. All right, let's get elected first. Let's legalize. I'm sure a lot of people would be happy with the legalization first, right? She's getting a bit outflanked by Chantal Brown because Chantal Brown signed up to the Medicare for All bill, and in her interviews, she's so throwing shades at her. Like, yeah, I'm glad she's following my lead, coming into the water when the water is not too cold or too hot anymore, and all that.
Is Chantal Brown saying that, or Nina Turner?
No, Nina Turner is saying that, yeah. But to be honest, even though I think Nina Turner is the better candidate between the two, I must say, how should anybody even for a second trust you? As soon as your campaign got some traction last time around, your rhetoric changed like that to something far more conciliatory towards the mainstream. So now she's doing all this. No, we need leadership. We need somebody who's a fighter. I'm a fighter. Really? I don't know. I don't know. It's so just
I guess we'll see this time around.
Do they think people have a goldfish sort of a style memory? Like it was less than a year ago, I believe, her campaign. And returning to our children learning and stuff, the reason why I don't take her seriously, just go watch her interview with Jeremy Corbyn, and it's so interesting. Jeremy Corbyn talking about the leftist history.
So
in the
is
US.
That the one she did with on behalf of TYT? She went to the UK like a few months ago. Yeah, and then watch that interview. This is not a serious person who knows much about the left or anything like that. These are activists turned politicians who are really interested in their own careers. That's it. So in that interview, she betrays the lack of knowledge of the left. It's so funny. Jeremy Corbyn mentions Tony Benn, and by the way, if you're leftist and don't know about Tony Benn, educators, it's the best. Well, I told you about. I told him. So I'm not good with names. Then though, tell me.
He's the aristocrat British guy, sort of. He's so
Which
good.
one though? That wasn't a good description. Like a million of them.
I don't know. I gave his name. He was Jeremy Corbyn's sort of role model. They used to be part of the same clique. He was. It's too long. I can't go into it right now. He did the Ali G interview.
Okay.
Yeah, he's genuinely one of the best leftists ever. But anyways, so okay. By the way, I am so harsh.
No, I'm one of them too, I guess.
I am such a dick. I know. But anyway, I feel like I hope maybe its last campaign has educated her and she's actually become a better fighter and all that. So let's hope for that. But it feels like they are expecting us to forget everything like every 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see if she has like that. I guess that attitude that she had on that CNN interview that everybody loved and that we talked about last week, with Joe Manchin's aide, where she, went all out on. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, just running so soon. It wasn't Joe
Manchin's aide. Let's clarify. He was Joe Manchin's archaeologist slash strategist.
I mean, if I was her advisor, and I've never been involved in politics, so I shouldn't be anyone's advisor. However, you just lost there. I mean, I get that there's another opportunity to go for it again, but losing twice again there, that might be very bad for her. For her career still going forward. Maybe she should.
And now she's fighting incumbent.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, last time they didn't know you could spend money in politics, so maybe this time. That you're allowed to buy ads. So let's see.
Okay, I thought I'm harsh, but I'm glad you're equally harsh. So
No, but I love that explanation. It was just funny. Like everybody was like, so the last minute money came in, they bought the ads. I'm like, yeah, you
what
didn't
a
see that coming.
surprise!
But okay, Sam, let's move on to pick of the week, best and worst. Who should go first?
Two.
I think last time you did, you went first, so I'll go first. And since we have two bests, I'll mention my first best, which is my first best, I guess, is a realist, John Mearsheimer, and I'm sure a lot of people know about him. And he's an international relations professor. And there's a lot of great lectures about him. And, it's just funny because realists are supposed to, in international relations at least, which is different than being a realistic person. That's not what realism really means.
It's a school of thought.
Yeah, in international relations, it's different than that. And they pretty much put the state at, the heart of international relations. And they say the state is important and you need to be as strong as possible in order to get what you want from other states. So it kind of sounds like a very pro-war-y kind of and first, and you just hear about it like that. And then there's liberalism, which came about later, and they say, well, and both of them are quite descriptive based on my understanding of theories. They're not necessarily normative saying how it should be. They're descriptive because liberalism.
They are normative too, as
normative
well,
too. But
I'll talk about it.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let me just finish with the liberalism thing.
Yeah.
But just because they're descriptive to a certain extent, because the liberalism school of thought there starts by this observation of them saying, based on my understanding, that no, states are no longer only the important actors, and now there's international organizations and corporations and all this, and they can be. It's not about how strong and powerful your state is, right? So that kind of sounds like they're less into war. But when you hear John Mearsheimer speak, at least at times, you would think it's just this
opposite
anti-war, lefty talking, although he's just probably reaching those conclusions, saying the Iraq war isn't good or bad, not because you shouldn't attack another country, but because it weakened the US. So he kind of reaches that point from there. So he's not necessarily anti-war. It's just funny when you listen to him, you would think, yeah, you wouldn't think, but yeah, exactly. They're realists, which doesn't necessarily, I guess, mean that they're pro-war.
It's fascinating you say that. When I went to university, my professor Justin Rosenberg in international relations, and I was such a dick, by the way. I hope I can apologize because I used to be a right-wing person, one of those assholes in seminars that always questioned everything.
And you guys love to talk from the get-go. And you're not typically one of them, but usually these right-wingers who talk a lot in these classes, they're also very much against Amsterdam and the fact that weed is legal there. So I don't know.
I was not.
That was,
I am.
For some reason, that's very
say,
close to their heart as well, based on my observation in classes. Amsterdam are changing the laws. You can no longer smoke weed there. Okay.
Okay, thanks. No, I would say I was always, and I'm glad about that. I was always, even when I was right wing, I was libertarian, right? Okay. It has some self-respect, I would say. But yeah, sorry, Justin Rosenberg, he's a famous person on the left. He has come up with a theory that I actually hope to do one day my PhD sort of on the basis of his idea of the uneven and combined development. It's a thing that Trotsky came up with about his theory of history. But he became famous. One of the first articles he wrote with some other guy was an interview they did with Kenneth Waltz, who was considered the patriarch of the realist school before he passed out. And Kenneth Waltz famously, Justin Rosenberg, I remember this specifically in the interview, that he says that, yeah, exactly, we thought you're realist, you're going to be pro-war and stuff. And I think it was Vietnam War or the first Iraq War, I forget, that you oppose these wars. And it's so fascinating to us from left perspective that and it was yeah, of course I oppose them because I think it doesn't serve the interest of the state. And I would say that's why I say it was normative as well. So they say that not only that, of course, it's accurate descriptions that the states are by far the leading international actors, but also it's normative in a way that it says that's how any state leader should operate. That's that's the reality that they should operate based on. They shouldn't put any faith in international institutions, in negotiations, in treaties, in that type of thing. So it's normative in that sense. But it is, as you said, in most cases, it comes out as a form of a statist conservatism in a way, in isolationist. So liberalism far more aggressive in its international outlook because it's much more about expanding its values. I mean, French Revolution.
I forgot about that part of when I was describing the two theories. Yeah, and for liberal, at least John Mearsheimer talks about that a lot. For liberals, it's about going and making other places liberal. At least they want that, which means regime change, which means war. And he made the joke that there's like no war that liberal wouldn't like want to get him. Yeah,
that's true because unless you have a whole liberal war, then you're done.
Yeah. So his lectures are great, and there are so many. I'm sure people have seen them.
Awesome.
But I was listening to this one. I couldn't believe it was from 4 years ago, man. This guy was ahead of his time. He was talking 4 or 5 years ago about Ukraine. And of course, the stuff with the Ukraine goes back to 2015, the latest round. But I halfway through, I checked. I was like, oh my God, this lecture is from 4 years ago. Man, he was spot on. And I thought it was literally talking about right now. But he was, he was just.
That's why, by the way,
I'm sure he has a lot of flaws and stuff if, listen more to his things, but.
Yeah, but just international relations or academia as a whole is on a different level than the debates that goes on media, not just even mainstream media. That's why I hope maybe one day, maybe tiny bit, us and our 5 subscribers can play a role in bringing some level of more academic stuff, because academia is just so much ahead and it's so cool, so much cooler. Nobody's talking about values, everybody's talking about interest, and
some areas they do talk about values, I guess, and stuff, but but
it's basically risk for real. You play risk as a job. It's awesome.
And I have a feeling it's hard to get for interviews, John Mearsheimer, because otherwise I can see Aaron Matta getting him on pushbacks. That's based on that, I feel like he must be really hard to get. And I feel like if you email him, he'll just be like, go watch this lecture of mine that has like a lot of views for lectures, like hundreds of thousands, more.
He's a big figure on the realist school of IR, as they call it. Yeah, he's a big figure.
No, okay, great stuff. Let's move on to our second best of the week, which is Aaron Matta's dad, right? Gabor Matta.
Gabor Matta.
I have yet to listen to this. So he went on Katie Halper's show, right?
Yeah, it was a great interview. They mostly talked about his personal life and personal experience, some of which was fascinating to hear about. And it wasn't just one of those shitty interviews that they talk about how difficult their life was. He was actually like discussing it in a way to draw something from it in a genuine way and in a useful way, I would say. But first of all, I would say you presented his ideas far worse than he did. He comes across as the most sober-minded yet passionate. Like he mixes coolness with passion in such a nice way. So he's like the coolest, passionate guy I've seen. Like, yeah, man, I don't really get emotional. My voice is very cool. I don't have any facial expressions, but I believe that you should be passionate about preserving human lives in everywhere they are. And it's so good. It's so good.
No, and that's funny you say that, because I got the same impression. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, he reminds everyone, I think, of the real importance of Holocaust and why everybody should learn about it, including Whoopi Goldberg, and how it can be actually a very useful, like something that you draw lessons from instead of draw hatred from, as some people do.
But how did he describe himself professionally in that interview? Like what did he say he exactly?
I think psychology or psychiatry. I don't remember. Katie introduced her, but I don't remember how specific.
But you listen to him once, and he's definitely like a figure that you really like and you really enjoy listening to him. Because I haven't
read anything he's written or anything. I just saw this interview, so I don't know. But yeah, he seems genuine. He seemed very passionate. He seemed very sober-minded.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, no, I got the exact same kind of impression because I saw him for the first time maybe 10 years ago on Democracy Now! And he left like a big impression on me. And then he's not necessarily in news and politics. So it's not like you see him every day on YouTube. So I don't think I even saw something from him since then, but I completely remember his demeanor and the way he explained stuff and talked about stuff.
How Jordan Peterson is like more popular than him? I assume they're in similar sort of fields, and they're both Canadian. So
I mean, it's
that's
clear.
Why
so, I mean, I know you know the answer, but
yeah, you're right. Majority of people are.
No, that's one way.
That's the answer, right? No. I got the wrong lesson again. Oh.
The defenses on Jordan Peterson. I mean, I don't want to open now. Let's leave it for another time when we do Jordan Peterson.
Joking, by the way.
Let's move on to our worst pick, Sam.
Yeah.
To your worst pick, I guess. Well, I mean, mine too. If you don't mind.
Sorry. Oh wow. Where is it?
It's Glenn's critique anyway.
Oh yeah. No, sorry. I didn't. I thought it was two. I didn't have the other one in my document.
No, we did John Mearsheimer and Gabor Mate as the best pick of the week.
I thought we had two critical stuff, but okay.
No, we did have two, but one of them already did it. Mine was, since you brought it up, was the Whoopi Goldberg's final thoughts on the Colbert show, where she ends up with whatever. I just won't talk about it anymore. I mean,
the most passive-aggressive apology for
like even a spoiled 9-year-old wouldn't talk like that. So that was my worst, but we've already talked about it so much. So we can
like
just
you're disparaging 9-year-olds. But Glenn had one of the best critiques ever on. And what the hell, man? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be critical of Glenn now. I'm going to break the taboo. And you have to pick better critics. What is this guy? I really wanted to give him a spanking just because he's like, 5 years old? He has read probably nothing, it seems, in his whole life. And he, Glenn, you went on Tucker, and I think, I think this is a pretty close. You didn't say that, so you kind of did endorse it, didn't you? This condescending, patronizing little nitwit, really with a nitwit that needs a spanking and that has no knowledge. I mean, you say that you shouldn't, you should, if you want to debate something, you should be, somewhat informed. This motherfucker he hasn't read what Glenn writes. He hasn't watched the shows that maybe he should read the book or at least watch a full show before he's, Glenn, I think, you're being disingenuous.
And the confidence on this kid to just keep on going with his questions. And apparently Glenn said that Glenn wanted to bury this interview. But this kid kept on emailing him and asking him to really put it on. And the kid kills me. You see his face. You have his first name.
I'm sure.
But he decided he didn't want his last name to be exposed.
Wait. I have a whole bit for that. This kid is one of the most, I would say he's probably one of the best people, like him and James Bond, who wherever he goes, he introduces himself like he's a undercover agent. Like, who are you? James Bond. Okay, now everybody knows. But so him and James Bond are competing for the most mysterious man ever. He's like, I don't want anything about my family name to be disclosed. And then his face is on camera, and he's like, who are you trying to hide from? The people you're trying to hide from can find you like that based on your name. And oh my god, this kid, man, he got this new generation. I'm scared of him. So arrogant.
It's all generations.
Full of themselves. No, it's all I'm just saying I'm turning into an old man and becoming afraid of, I mean, the arrogant little creep. Fuck, he was so creepy as well.
Yeah,
the whole interview.
The poor kid was it really wasn't a pleasure looking at him.
It's just because he was I mean, I'm such a dick myself, but I feel like I waited long enough before going public with my dickness to have enough information. This guy, you need to at least bulk up if you want to be that Oh my God.
But I think I don't think Glenn is picking the worst. I don't know. I mean, now the other guy who came on before him.
The other guy was so nice.
Yeah, he was so
nice.
Yeah, he was extremely. His kid was so rude.
So, but I'm expecting he'll become a regular host on TYT any day now.
Oh my God, I swear to God.
I promise you, they're gonna have him featured. Like, as anybody who says anything bad about Glenn or anything like that, they have them as a guest host the next day. So
and they have to be a guest host. They can't be a guest. No, they go straight to guest hosting on TYT for some reason.
You've been hired for a full year. That's how they blow through the $20 million.
Chillax, you have enough hosts. That's not the issue here. Everyone has to be a host on that show. Anyway.
It's a broad church.
Yeah. But okay, Sam, good stuff. I think we went through everything. It was a fun one. Any final words?
Yeah, we need to start criticizing more right-wing people. I feel like it's just because we consume mostly left-wing media. That's the reason. And we don't want to do extra research for our work. So.
And you have to watch so much mainstream media or like Fox or like read the stuff. And I mean, right-wing stuff, like what? Yeah.
It's too difficult to, like, I can't watch Tucker Carlson. I'm sorry, but a man has his limits.
All right. Anyway. Well, please leave your comments, questions, criticisms, everything down below. We'll make sure to get to them. If not, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.